east, trying to find the south. But if you're looking for the truth, got to find it out. NASA can't go to space, so we hit the roof. Get it? Hit the roof. Bid it all kindlelight with 200 proofs. Now I'm just really sick of people lying to me. So when I tell the truth, don't come crying to me. Pick up the phone, get on the line with me. Line with me. Who you gonna call? Who you gonna call?
And welcome everybody to GLOBEBUSTERS, Electric Universe, connecting comets with cataclysms. I am your host, Bob Xanadude60, and we are back with another great show for you today. We are going to be taking on the subject of comets and how they apply to a lot of the cataclysms that have gone on throughout history. We're going to kind of debunk the mainstream idea of what comets actually are, because frankly, dirty snowballs in space is a pretty ridiculous assertion. So we got all that and more in store for you today, and hope you're going to like it. But before we get to that, let's go ahead and introduce the panel. And first up, as always, we have Jeran from Jeranism. How you doing today, Jeran?
Doing fantastic, Bob. You?
Doing good. Weather's beautiful in Denver today, but ridiculous. Whoopsie. But we have winter on the way. I'll tell you, we've already had one big snow, and it's just getting a little bit crazy, I'll tell you.
All right, yeah. Well, weather here in California is normal for California, so it's decent, and I'm excited about today's show. Got a lot of questions about this subject, and looking forward to it. And I've always had questions about California being an island. It certainly seems very recent, and the fact that there's maps that show no Great Lakes, and so I know these guys cover that topic, so I'm looking forward to it. I think everybody will enjoy the show.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, I was really surprised too that so many maps actually correlate this, California being shown as an island. And, I think the reasons that they have come up with have been pretty plausible. So we'll definitely get into that here shortly. Okay, so next up, we have with us Iru Landucci from the land down under. How's everything going today, Iru?
Hello, Bob. Hello, everyone on the panel. Nice to be here, and nice weather too in the Sutherland. So I really like the topic. Like Jeran says, it's a really interesting topic and with a lot of questions. So it's nice to have people that research this topic. And of course, I have my tendency to the electric universe, and for me, it's have more explanations based on electricity than rocks in space.
Yeah, amen to that. That's absolutely true. Okay, cool. And next up, we have with us our newest father again. I believe number 5 for you, Ben. Congratulations.
And
Thank you. Yeah, and welcome. What's going on besides the new baby and changing diapers?
Well, I'm happy to be back with my family. We do have a new baby girl. Her name is Alina. That's 5 children for us. And sadly, I actually missed the baby of our girl, which was actually in the house. My wife had it with the midwife at the house. But I missed it because I was in travels trying to get to Romania for the conference there.
Yeah, I know. I couldn't believe that. You had just gotten the notification and, I'm sitting at the airport. It's like, wow, what timing.
I know. And it's actually a really strange thing to come home to a baby. You missed all the birth, you missed all of that, and then all of a sudden, oh, by the way, here's the new baby, and you're just like, that was a very different experience for me. But it's wonderful to be back with my family, and she's a beautiful little girl.
Yes, she is. She absolutely is gorgeous and perfect. So, gotta love that. And again, congratulations.
And I'll have to tell you a little bit about Romania, though. That was fascinating. When you're ready.
Oh, absolutely. Well, we'll get to that. We're going to introduce Stephen Ross, and then we'll kind of talk about the Amsterdam tour and Romania and everything that happened on that. But I want to welcome our guests. today. They are from a channel that has got almost as cool of a name as we do. And that would be the Spacebusters channel. I came across their channel, I don't know, probably 6-9 months ago, something like that. And I really enjoy it. I really, really like the series that you do, the NASA fanboys, debunking them. And, when I saw the Comets and Cataclysms series that you did, absolutely fabulous. So welcome, Steve and Ross. How are you guys doing today?
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, really good.
Really good. Yeah.
Really excited you had us on and that you found our channel. That was really good. That's actually Ross does the fanboys questions. We catch a lot of heat for that one, as you guys probably do too.
Oh yeah.
We get we get a lot of arguments over those, but they seem self-evident. So
yeah, they are pretty obvious, and I got to give you kudos for taking those on, because frankly, dealing with the trolls is something I don't like to do, because it's just a never-ending battle, it seems.
Yeah,
I absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. Actually, the reason that I haven't taken any of the comments off is because I wanted people to see the extent that these guys go to debunk everything. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
So I know that a lot of the channels, they take off all of the trolls and whatever, but we don't. We leave them on there so people can see how ridiculous it is.
Yeah, and I'm one of those channels, because we've been doing this for 4 years, and we have trolls that routinely come and spam. Well, just for example, I mean, right before the show started, we had something like 70 comments from this one troll who thinks it's cute to go on every single show and spam every comment section, and with stupid questions, and I just remove them. They never even see the light of day, and I keep it that way, because as far as I'm concerned, if it's a legitimate question or a legitimate issue, that's one thing, but most of the time it's just, oh, you guys are retards, and stuff like that. So I don't deal with it.
Yeah, logical ad hominem logical fallacy attacks. And you gotta think about it. The worst part of your day is when the alarm clock goes off in the morning and wakes you up. And so you're doing that to people. They're getting upset. If people want to sleep, I've come to the conclusion, just let them sleep. Don't wake them up, And for the trolls, the old saying, you don't catch flack unless you're right over the target. So, you should take it as a compliment that they're trolling you. Otherwise, if you weren't worth the time, you're probably not saying anything relevant.
Yep.
There is actually one regret that I have with the channel, is that we've mixed the two. We've mixed the NASA fanboys and all of the slightly serious stuff. So the problem we have now is the fanboys have come over and started trolling the other stuff, the Comet stuff. So I think I'm going to have to start removing them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that happens. It doesn't, once you're on their radar, they will come to every single video. So, welcome to being over the target. That's all I can say, is you guys are doing something right.
Yeah. Well, this was an interesting, the Comet series was very interesting. I started looking into it. You must know Martin Leidke from Flat Earth British. I'm sure you guys, I don't know if you're friends with him or.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, so he had I had seen one of his videos where he had this book with the Comet records relating to health epidemic outbreaks. It was written by an English doctor, and he just barely blew through it in 2 minutes. And he was, his channel, he kind of looks at pictures. He doesn't speak Latin or any foreign languages other than French, and he never really reads what's under these books. He just leaves you links and takes a stab by a picture. And I thought, hang on a second, what is that? I thought it was crazy. So I pulled this book up and started looking back. And at the same time, I was looking at something else with these maps about California and this Lake Cannabis, Lake Zembre. I found another huge one we can talk about today, where now sits the island of Guam in Palau. I found a continent that it's almost is bigger than Southeast Asia. It's on all the old maps from the 1600s. And once again, on Google Maps, if you zoom in, you can see the exact shape underwater. And the only thing left is this little island of Guam with the Northern Mariana Island chains around it. And then this little island, Palau. This continent is about the size of half of Australia. It's huge, and it's underwater now again. just like all these other ones, and it's on these old maps. These people knew about it up till 200 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. Absolutely. Well, okay. Well, we will get to that in a minute.
Yeah.
But I want to kind of go at first. I want to talk about something that just happened this week, and you guys are way up. I forgot what country are you guys in?
Denmark.
You're in Denmark. That's right. Okay.
Yeah, we're in Copenhagen. We're in the capital of Denmark, Copenhagen.
Oh, okay. Yeah, beautiful. So you're not very far from the Arctic Circle then.
Not at all.
Yes. Yeah, I remember you saying that you were talking about launching a balloon into the Aurora Borealis, and I think that would be fabulous, but we'll talk about that in a minute. So
Yeah.
up there in sort of your neck of the woods, at least closer than the United States, Amsterdam, and also Romania. We had just a couple of conferences last week, and of course, Jeran and Niru attended the Amsterdam conference, and that was a huge success. And Ben went to the Romania conference, and Ben, you did a fabulous presentation. I really appreciated you sharing that with us, but tell us a little bit about what went on there.
Well, thank you for I was happy to put out my presentation. I created the backup in case there was something that would cause me not to be able to go there. So I had that backup video just in case, and I was able to share that with everyone. But we had a lot of great speakers there. We had Sasha, who's known as Orphan Red. She was there. She had a great speech. Wide Awake was there. And I was introduced to some of these other international flat earthers I didn't never even heard of. Like there was Oliver Ibanez from Spain.
Oh, yeah.
He has 405,000 subscribers. I mean, I've never even, there's a lot of people there. But we had some Romanian speakers. They're conducting their own experiments as well. They have a laser experiment that I hope to share on my channel soon. But you're really going to love this. They also had Lucio, who was a representative from the Brazilian Convex Earth Group. And the Convex Earth Group, they're claiming that the Brazilian United Nations is going to help them cross Antarctica. But I strongly doubt the claim. I spent 30 minutes before today's show trying to cross-check some of the information they had on their website. And I didn't see much verification there. So I doubt that. But of course, I had to ask them about Bilu. And, I sincerely thought maybe that it was just a dramatization or something. But Lucio sincerely believed in Bilu and that he had talked to Bilu 18 times. And I thought it was fascinating because he was sincere about it. So he also said that in 7 years, Bilu spaceships are going to come. One of the Christians that was there was thinking that they conjured a demon or something, and that they're going to participate in this fake alien invasion. I don't know. I think it's all just mass trickery and delusion, but I actually hope to talk to him a little bit more just because I find it all fascinating. But we also had a chance to tour a lot of Romania. We went to Brasov and Sibiu, and we saw Dracula's castles and things like that. And I was able to try some Romanian moonshine that knocks you on your butt. But one more story that was really fascinating is when David Wide Awake was returning, he was at the customs and they asked him, they said, what did you do in Romania? And he said, well, I took some photographs and, I like photography. And they said, no, you didn't. You were there at the Flat Earth Conference. Anyway,
oh my.
So he underwent 15 more minutes of questioning because of his attendance at the Flat Earth Conference. I thought that was fascinating that they knew where we were, but I never got questioned about it.
Is watching.
Yeah, no kidding.
Did you go to the pyramid there? There's supposed to be a pyramid there where they have all kinds of ancient technology underneath.
No, we didn't get a chance to go. Lucio, the Brazilian guy, he was going over there. I guess they're doing some convex Earth stuff over there. But, that's some weird stuff going on.
Yeah, I've heard there's some very strange things happening in that country.
All right. Well, that's my report.
All right. Fair enough. Okay. And shout out to Art Claflin for the $9.99 super chat. It says, thanks, Globebusters, for all your work. See you in Dallas. Yes, sir. We will see you in Dallas. Beautiful. Thank you. Appreciate the super chats. All right. So, that sounds fascinating, Ben. I wish I could have gone. And I know that I know Zack wishes he could have gone also, but I wish I could have made Amsterdam. There's going to be so many conferences all over the world. I mean, this is really, becoming epidemic, which is great. It absolutely is, because it's opening a lot of eyes. And I don't know what to say about the BLU group, because, initially I really liked their work. I liked a lot of the stuff that they were going to do. But, when Jeran and I saw the leader of that group, incommunicado with BLU, I felt, and Jeran did too, I think, that we simply had to distance ourselves from that. And yeah, they may have been very sincere about it, and who knows, it may even be real. But that's something. It's kind of like trying to mix, flat Earth with Adolf Hitler. It's just they don't mix, right?
Flat off.
Yeah, exactly.
Flat off Earthler.
Yeah, flat off Earthler. So anyway, so let's kind of jump into this, and what I want to do, guys, is, since we're going to be talking a lot about comets, I think one of the best things that we can do is to delve into what the mainstream tells us comets are, so we can see basically how ridiculous that is. And then I want to give a little bit of background about further research that has been done specifically by those gentlemen over at the Thunderbolts Project, Dave Talbot, Walt Thornhill, who Iro and I are big fans of, and I know obviously you've shared some work from it. So you agree, well, maybe not with everything they say, especially since they are looking at it in the heliocentric type of mindset. But essentially, what the mainstream science community currently believes that comets are is they think essentially they are dirty snowballs in space, or icy bodies. So here we have from space.com, which of course, is none other than NASA. And they say comets are icy bodies in space that release gas or dust. They are often compared to dirty snowballs, though recent research has led some scientists to call them dirty snowballs, right? So I find that interesting, because regardless of some of the high level research that has been done by, PhDs, high level scientists, physicists, astrophysicists, electrical engineers, and the like, that are looking at these, and, by NASA's own experiments, coming back and utterly disproving, these concepts that they have, right, about what this actually is. It's ridiculous that they keep going on with this narrative, but they do. And I think the reason for that, is going to be kind of what we're going to discuss today, because there's a much bigger picture behind what comets actually are, and they could be very well precursors to things that will come and have come in the past. And there is more than enough evidence to sufficiently link the two. Now, one thing that I found very interesting is if you go to, of course, the CIA's Wikipedia, they have this one section in here that's called Fear of Comets. And you got to love it, because they say fear of comets as acts of God and signs of impending doom was highest in Europe from AD 1200 to 1650, the year after the Great Comet of 1618. For example, Gotthard Arthusius published a pamphlet stating that it was a sign that the day of judgment was near. He listed 10 pages of comet-related disasters, including earthquakes, floods, changes in river courses, hailstorms, hot and dry weather, poor harvest, epidemics, war and treason, and high prices. By 1700, of course, most scholars concluded that such events occurred whether a comet was seen or not. Well, I think that's highly up for debate.
and we'll get into that later, because those dates you just read, when we talk about these grand solar minimums, 1200 was the Wolf minimum when the Great Black Death happened, and 1650 is what we're going to talk about. This was the Maunder minimum when these comets started turning up. Same in 1812, Halley's Comet was seen for 3 years almost in the sky, and think bad things happen. That's why they were afraid of them.
Yeah, for sure. Go ahead, Earl.
And I want to leave clear that we are talking like two different parts of the asteroids and comets, because we have those like you can see from here, and that is only light in the sky. And then you have the the picture of this kind of rocky wobble spheroid that, for example, the guys of Thunderbolt Project, they refer to that, but that depends only of the space agencies. So you don't have access to really launch a vehicle and trying to reach those supposedly rocks. So there are this mix of reality where you can see you can see is like a globular lighting, which is an electric phenomena, and that is light. Nobody go there and pick up the rocks that supposedly fall into the ground. And also the same guys of the Thunderbolt Project, they talked about you can manifest like tiny rocks from electricity for really high charge of electricity in the atmosphere. It's like some kind of condensation of matter, which is in the ether. So I mean, you must have that in mind. You have these two scenarios that when one with this CGI or just photograph of tiny rocks that they put on the black background and they say this is in space, and then you have what you can prove and observe, which is just a light phenomenon in the sky.
That's correct. And if I can add, I mean, while you were talking about the NASA version of this, you have to remember what they also say about these, as we put this in the movie, they say that these comets are they're the size of a small town. So, I don't know what they mean, what, a little 20, 30,000 person town. They say Temple Tuttle was the closest recorded one, and they said that was 3.6 million kilometers away from Earth. That was the closest one they claimed they recorded. Now, people do see this phenomenon, and I will get into it later, what I think it is, and I probably agree, but there's no way you can see an icy snowball 3.6 million kilometers away. And how could a town-sized snowball leave a tail? How long are they supposed to be? These tails?
Thousands of miles long.
I mean, this is ridiculous.
Plus the fact that if it's been, for 3 years going, and we can see it for 3 years, shouldn't it have melted by now?
I mean, well, how is there snow in space anyway? That's crazy.
Yeah, and you must be remembered that they all the measurements that they do is based on the astronomical unit, which is a totally out of the mind, because it's based on the supposedly distance or supposed sphere Earth to the sun. So I mean, all those measurements that they do, it's all BS. Sorry, but that is we need to separate in our minds which is reality that you can prove and what is based on their own agenda from the space agency.
Absolutely. I think if you look at NASA, I think we all know that they can't get into space. That's just absolutely ridiculous. So the data that they have, they sent up these probes to go through the tails of comets and pick up this data. We know that is just absolute bullshit.
Yeah, it's rubbish.
So where are they getting this data from? They can only get it from us here on Earth. There is no spacecraft going through the tail of a comet.
Yeah.
Yes, that's absolutely true. And some of the other things that they say about the comets, for example, Halley's Comet, which allegedly comes back every 75 years, and as it goes through, it gets near the sun and it lights up and illuminates, and they're saying essentially that what's causing that is it's melting and giving this brilliant tail out behind it. But then you would also think that it would be losing a lot of mass, which would change the orbital dynamics radically. Right. And yet, for whatever reason, it keeps going out, 75 years later, it comes back. And instead of going directly towards the sun and crashing into it, somehow it always just manages to skim it and, slingshot around it. It's just ridiculous that people believe.
Well, and you should also ask, if a town-sized snowball is leaving a visible light tail, where is our tail and the moon's tail if we're hauling ass that fast too? Our tail if that's all you should see if you were spinning around the backside, is a tail off the Earth and the moon shooting dust or whatever. Where's those tails?
Great point.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I actually did one of the fanboy questions was that where I said, you know, the moon is supposedly covered in this very, very fine moon dust, and it has no atmosphere. So why hasn't the moon got a tail?
Yeah.
Yeah, and
But
even more so now that question is relevant because now our atmosphere has been extended around the moon. So, you know, if there's an atmosphere now it should really be blowing off, right?
That's convenient. That's convenient.
Yeah.
And
Well,
in
go on,
fact,
carry on, carry on.
I believe they need to change the year because it's like you know, in the past, people that maybe lived in the city, they died before 75 years old, so they can, you know, made up a complete history. So maybe they need to change a little bit and maybe extend to 120. The comet changed the orbit. They change, you know, they change the orbit because, you know, some dust wind. So it's gonna come in 120 years, so you die, you never.
Right. Yeah, because you're conveniently no one will be around who remembered the last pass. What was it that didn't even come in 80? Was it Hale-Bopp or Halley's?
No, Halley's Comet.
It never even came.
It was meant to come back in the 80s, I think it was, and it didn't come back.
No.
No, and we don't know. You know, this is talking serious. I mean, we have companies that produce comets, meteor shower, and all kind of sky phenomena. Starale is in Japan is one of the most commercial out there. But the military guys, they have these big iron balls that they drop like a missile. So I mean, the people must be remembered that there is an unclassified document called NASA Blue Beam Project. So you must have that in mind, because when you talk about asteroids, you are talking about the blue beam is not just an holographic, you know, projection in the sky. The blue beam is even your paper news telling you that is solar wind coming to the Earth. That is also a blue beam, because everything that recreate this space idea in your mind, that is the real projection. That is the most important projection for them.
That's right. And I mean, what you can see right now is I think their biggest weapon is 1984, you know, Ministry of Truth. They're just rewriting stuff because they know we're the last, you know, Ross and I are, you know, we're upper in age and we're going to be gone soon. So they're just telling the kids now that the moon is in the Earth's atmosphere. And you're like, what? You couldn't have told us that the last 100 years? You know, it's like Ministry of Truth. They're just rewriting crap and putting it out because.
Yeah. Well, you know, I think that it's very likely that it is within our atmosphere, or if not, then behind a firmament or whatever. Of course, that all depends on your view of this particular cosmology, and we all have a little bit different views. There's no doubt about that. But you know, and it's just amazing that they stick to this stuff. And you know, as I was just showing a video here a minute ago, and by the way, guys, this is a fabulous video by the Thunderbolts Project. It will be in the show notes. It is called Episode 3, Symbols of an Alien Sky, the Electric Comet. It is an hour and a half long documentary. Fabulous. Absolutely.
I've seen
fabulous.
it. It's great. Yeah, great documentary.
Yep. And, you know, it's great because I love this quote at the end. Every time we look, we find our textbooks were wrong. Ed Wheeler of NASA Science Mission, right? So if they look, every time they look and they find their textbooks are wrong, then why aren't they revising their history unless there's some other blatant agenda for this, right?
Yeah, and you can read that in both ways, because they say it's wrong, so we need to correct it, or there is really wrong. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I want to do, let's see, I'm a little bit mixed up here on which ones I want to go to. The Thunderbolts Project has done a whole lot of research on comets and, you know, the electric universe in general. And again, this will be in the show links. But I think what people need to understand is that, you know, there is a very, very different view of what's going on with comets. And they appear to absolutely be an electrical phenomenon. No doubt about that. And seem to fit right into this electric model that we've been talking about for quite some time. So what I want to do is actually, if you guys want to take the conversation for a minute, I've got to find something that I can't believe I didn't have ready.
If
Go ahead,
you
Eru.
want, no, I mean, if you want, I can help you a little bit and make just a, tiny presentation about a few things for the electrical universe, talking about meteorites and comets and things like that. So if you like, I share the screen.
Yeah, I'll allow it.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. Yeah, I found it, but go ahead if you want to, Eru.
No, go. Oh, no, it's no. Go
Okay.
ahead, you, and I do later.
Okay, cool. Well, what I want to do is there is, in this particular video, there is a section that I want to play that I think is really relevant as to what it says about the nature of comets and what they have found out about them. And essentially what you're going to hear is that some of the stuff that they found around it seems like it could have only taken place in a water type environment. They also seem to be very surprised all the time that they're finding things like deuterium, right, in it, and which makes heavy water. And like I said, again, they're just, for whatever reason, they are absolutely blown away that these things keep coming up, and it's going right outside of their model. So let's go ahead and give this a listen really quick. Yeah, go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry. That was the video. Let's go ahead and give this a listen for just a few minutes, and then we'll kind of talk about what they're saying here. So let's give it a listen.
But this rationalization failed outright once the scientists had real comet dust in their laboratories. The grains were simply too large, and the mineralogical and chemical compositions far too complex. One puzzle was followed by another. Comet theory assumed that water ice was a primary constituent of active comets. But no water ice was detected on the nucleus of Wild 2, and not a trace of water was found in the well-preserved comet dust. And yet, paradoxically, the raw comet material of Wild 2 contained iron and sulfur minerals that can only be formed in the presence of liquid water. Liquid water, not in the near-perfect vacuum of deep space, and not in a deep freeze.
So these are very Earth-like conditions, more or less, which is the interesting thing about this. They don't appear to be coming from deep space. So that's one of the things. So they're not dirty snowballs, and they appear to be putting out almost no water whatsoever. And yet,
instead of trivial warming, the Wild 2 minerals revealed a diversity of formative processes. Various sulfide minerals requiring liquid water can only exist below 210 degrees Celsius or 410 degrees Fahrenheit. These minerals have never seen higher temperatures. But also occurring in the comet dust was the mineral olivine, whose molecular structure rapidly breaks down in the very presence of water. It's a common igneous form, an abundant byproduct of volcanism. Perhaps the biggest surprise was that some of the comet minerals, such as forsterite, in the instant of their formation, were heated to thousands of degrees. Forsterite is formed in the most intense volcanic heating of silicates, but occurs also in lightning strikes to silicate rocks. The message could not have been more emphatic. It was not just the hypothesized Oort cloud that failed to work as advertised. The entire concept of compositional zoning, as applied to comets, failed its first acid test.
Gee, what a surprise.
Comet material requiring moderate temperatures in liquid water. Comet material formed at exceedingly high temperatures. Only the most trivial levels of the presumed raw material of comets, interstellar dust. A complete absence of water, despite cometary material originally formed in liquid water, though the olivine abundances could not have been formed or even survived in the presence of liquid water. And of course, liquid water requires atmospheric or other pressure. It cannot exist in the extreme vacuum of interstellar space. To this seemingly contradictory picture, we must add extreme selective heating. Selective heating because much of the compositional material could not survive the superheating that created olivine, forsterite, and other crystalline minerals. The Wild 2 discoveries have forced upon comet science one inescapable fact. In our own cosmic neighborhood, the diverse mineral content of Wild 2 is typical only of planets in the habitable zone of a fully developed sun.
All right. So essentially, now what this means to me, guys, and I'm definitely interested in hearing your takes on it, but my particular view, and I am not speaking for everybody here, but my particular view of this place that we're in, it definitely aligns very much with the biblically described cosmology. Now, I'm not a religious person, but I think that there's enough evidence to kind of go with the idea that what's been laid out in the Bible appears to have a lot of evidence supporting it, in my opinion. Okay, so what I'm getting out of this is that the materials that the comets are formed from, first of all, there's almost a complete absence of water, right? So the idea of them being dirty snowballs or ice in general is completely out the window. But the way that they were formed and the crystalline structure that is going on within them is telling me that what they most likely could probably be is particulates that are broken off from what we would call the firmament, okay? And the reason I say that is because there are certain types of crystal, like piezoelectric crystals, that when you add pressure to them, they will light up. Or if you change charge potential of certain minerals, they will also fluoresce. And it seems like comets, when they come into the vicinity and the presence of the sun, this is when they're actually, lighting up. So maybe one of the reasons, if we're in this electrical construct, that we see this increased presence of comets is because there is a actual change in the system, the overall biosphere that we happen to be in. This is what I kind of think is going on. And, I also think it goes very much along the idea of why they could be, spraying these chemtrails, because we know that chemtrails have an ingredient of aluminum, barium, and strontium. And if what we suspect is actually about to take place, meaning some sort of a reset that is related definitely to a plasma type event, then we are seeing the precursor signs. The comets would be the precursor signs. Now, why do I say that I think the chemtrails have something to do with it? Is I suspect that the elites are either trying to facilitate it further or possibly hold it off for a while by increasing the conductivity of the atmosphere. And of course, one thing I've noticed in the last 22 years or so that I have noticed the chemtrails is we've had a dramatic increase of like cloud to cloud lightning that's very silent. I've noticed it, quite a bit. Also, some very, very strange atmospheric phenomenon seem to be taking place. I was telling these guys a couple months ago about the lightning that I saw here in Denver, where it looked like sheets of lightning, really super wide bolts were coming down. And just 4 nights ago, I saw something that I had never seen in my life. and I saw 4 red lightning strikes. I mean, blood red. Never seen anything like it in my life. We also know that the Earth's magnetic field is changing. It's shifting. North is picking up speed and moving away from where it is. So, in other words, what I'm saying is that this, in my mind, is indicative of us being in this construct, and the chemtrails, adding these elements into the sky, are actually increasing the conductivity, thus neutralizing these charged potentials that could bring about these large plasma storms. Now, I know that's highly conjectured, but this is kind of how I think. What do you guys think?
Can I be the negative person here for a second?
Absolutely, Ben. Knock it out.
That entire video that you just shared was based on the premise that NASA grabbed comet dust.
Yeah.
I mean, I doubt that 100%.
Where'd they get it? If the closest comet was 3.5 million miles away or kilometers, where'd they get the dust?
Well, let me say this. Look, we see these phenomena in the sky, and they could have craft that are high enough in altitude that there could be some sort of a residue. I mean, we've seen supposedly, asteroids that come across the sky, whatever, and there is some sort of residue. This is what they could be picking up, if we're on like a smaller scale here. And I've always said that, I think that really, when you're dealing with plasma physics, it's a very scalable type of thing. And so you can have something that you can have in the laboratory that's demonstrated on a very small scale, but then you can scale it up to galactic proportions, and it still works essentially the same way. So, that would be my answer to that, Ben.
Okay. Well, it just seems like when we're sifting through the bullshit that they feed us, that I'm at that point where I'm not going to believe anything that comes from them unless I can detect it myself, measure it myself, those kind of things. Otherwise, I fear that we're just getting sucked into more of their fake world.
That is correct, but what we can see, have you guys noticed, lightning used to never strike twice in the same place. Now, even in our video, we have footage. It's the same lightning arc coming down for 10 seconds straight in the same path with the same shape. So we now have lightning grounding, and it's repeatedly striking. We're having the same up here in Copenhagen as you're seeing. Actually, we're seeing this noiseless lightning all summer shooting across from cloud to cloud, ionic discharge up top.
Yeah, and I'd say, Bob, I've seen that red lightning as well. Yeah, I saw it a few weeks back here in Copenhagen. So I totally agree with you there. There's something going on.
Yeah, it's eerie. And I agree, Ben, that we can't take everything or anything that NASA says. However, there are a lot of independent, more or less, university-based science agencies that are collecting this data from somewhere. Could it be 100% fabricated? Absolutely, it could be. But it would seem that it would be awfully strange that they are fabricating data that is constantly going against their model that they're pushing, and then they completely ignore it, right? Most of the like NASA themselves said, every time we open our textbooks, they're wrong. Well, if they're fabricating this data, then why would they do this? And again, I don't know those answers.
Well,
but
I think it adds to the intrigue. Like, for instance, they hit the moon with a spaceship, and they said the dust doesn't match what they thought it was. I think it adds to the intrigue to come up with ideas that are opposite of maybe what they've said in the past, so that they can continually keep people interested in trying to figure it all out. But, again, I don't mean to be so negative or anything. I just have a hard time believing anything that comes from NASA at all, or any of their institutions.
It's not negative. I think it's the same thing we all feel. There's just no way you can believe the stuff that they keep putting out there. And yeah, you can ask the question, well, why would they put it out there? But like you said, I think it adds to the intrigue, it adds to the whole allure of space and what these guys can do out there, and they can collect dust, and it's all very easy for them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Fair enough. And again, I'm not married to any of this, but I am thinking that in keeping in consistency with my idea of, this firmament-based type of thing. And, I do believe very much that our history has been radically altered. I think that, some of Martin Liedtke's work, whether some people find it credible or not, there is obviously, a huge part of our history, if not all of it, that we've been lied to about. So we're kind of left to fend for ourselves and extrapolate a lot of this. And like, Steve said earlier, all science is not bad,
Right.
Some of it has validity. Of course, the trick is sifting that out, right?
Right. That's the hard part.
Yeah, but for me, it's like, for example, this topic about the global warming and the climate change. That, for example, here in Argentina, the last week we have a conference inside of the Grand Lodge of Freemasonry from Argentina, and it's available in YouTube, so you can check out for yourself. And they dedicate a whole week of the global warming. So there are all professors from universities. In fact, there was 2 guys from here, from my city, from my university. They go there and give a lecture, for it was an open session. It's not this kind of thing that the Freemason do, in terms of the science, in the progress and things like that. It's just all indoctrination. But the thing is, for example, when you listen to these guys, they are super, intelligent people, but they use, when they need to refer and say, okay, we know that this has happened because we had the data from NASA and their satellites. So
right.
when you go here, for example, like I tell you before, the Thunderbolt project, they make a complete, reasonable, research and blah blah blah. But they need from the space agency the final thing to say, okay, this is real, because nobody have access to the space. So they never see or saw via telescope a rock flying through the sky. Everything is filmed from here, from the ground, inside of our cosmos, and all you can film is a light.
Agree,
So-
but do you think that some of this phenomenon is actually making it into our atmosphere? And if so, could this
Yes.
not be entirely what they're detecting and basing this off of?
That is why I want to share with you these 2 tiny clips, because maybe we can have a starting point to discuss more deeply this topic. So if you like, I can do this, improvised.
Absolutely, I'm down. If you guys are down, then let's do it. Because I'm, like I said, and I will be the first one to admit, I am completely spitballing here, and I am also fully acknowledging the idea that the information we get from NASA is bullcrap. SOHO, I figured that out a long time ago. It's not consistent with amateur observations. So yes, probably a huge amount of it is fabricated, but there is still some observable stuff. Somebody asked in the chat a little while ago, well, how do we know that the magnetic fields are changing? Well, because the runways of airports are no longer corresponding to the magnetic readings that were there when they were originally set up. And that's not something that they're BSing us about. That's actually happening, and it's verifiable by the evidence of what's been there for quite some time before. So things are changing, and yes, it's very difficult to try and sift through it. So yeah, Era, if you want to share your screen, I will present you.
Okay, I'm sharing right now.
Okay.
So let me know if okay.
Yep, you're presenting, guys. Can you see it, Ross and Steve? You see his screen?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, knock it out, Era.
So this is from my presentation of the electric universe, and it's in Spanish video. So I subtitled the video. So forgive me if it's any kind of writing issue, but I translated via my brain and Google. So the nice thing about this is, when you start talking about comets, I have a few clips that maybe we can illustrate another path in this topic. And the first one came from, because everything, if you talk with a regular person, even with a scientist, and say, hey, did you see a comet once or an asteroid? They the only thing that they can refer is those videos from the car of in Russia, that type of things. I mean, it's just this kind of lighting in the sky. But they know the common people they don't know this phenomena called globular lighting. And when you start compare globular lighting with these supposedly comets, they are all the same. It's share the same kind of concept. So let me just play this short video and we discuss on this.
El rayo globular es un fenómeno atmosférico muy escurridizo y cuyo origen todavía no ha sido aclarado. En ese sentido es de la familia de los sprites o duendes de las tormentas. Durante años se pensó que era una invención de quienes aseguraban haberlo visto. Hubo que esperar hasta disponer de una evidencia clara para tomárselo en serio.
Lo que veremos es un rayo en forma esférica. Aparecen y se mueven en ocasiones muy lentamente, en ocasiones muy rápidamente. Se suelen presentar en colores cálidos, sobre todo en color naranja, pero también aparecen en colores fríos. Y luego, tras esto, desaparecen con una explosión bastante significativa que deja un olor como a azufre, a huevos podridos.
So, I don't know if you can read what the guy says, but basically, they're talking about. Let me just play a little bit without sounds. They talk about like this globular lighting is is a very elusive atmospheric phenomena that originally came from the sprite family type of phenomena. And how many of you know the sprite phenomena before become a flat earther?
Not me.
I never.
Not me, no.
Not me either.
Me
So, I
neither.
mean,
No.
How does this explain the incredibly long tails on comets? That's
Well,
that's
and-
my only thing.
okay.
So
So
are they long? That's all perspective. They
Well, there
tell,
is
you know
that.
what I mean?
Yeah.
If the thing's in our upper atmosphere, how long is it? If you can see it, it might not be more than a couple hundred meters or 200 feet.
exactly that for me that is one of the of things to consider. We can access to measure that. You cannot see how big is that light. It's impossible to detect how light how in fact, if you put all the atmospheric phenomena that light amplified its size based on on the air in the water in the atmosphere, you cannot tell because it's a light, it's not an object. So you cannot, this, for example, this size increase based on the light intensity, not in the size of the object itself, for example. So you cannot really see how long is the tail or the actual lighting. But the thing here is that the globular lighting is a phenomena that also, when it finish, explode and make a really big noise and leave rotten eggs smell. But the thing is, for example, when you see the camera from this phenomena that they say, okay, a meteor crash in the ground, and they show some kind of inside of office video where the glasses explode. You see that, right? So if you start thinking, what is more, reasonable? It's that something super tiny hit the ground and, make all these broken windows and broken glasses, things like that, or could be something on the air. Of course, the wave span, the sound expansion in the air, the wave expansion breaking the glass, things like that.
Yeah, it's like a sonic boom.
Like a sonic boom, exactly. So of course they refer that too, but for me it's more reasonable if you're talking about this kind of phenomena than the rocks that supposedly disappear, disintegrate via in the atmosphere, and in what place this rock hit the ground.
Well, I mean, the color is interesting that you bring up on these, because color in general, it's the visible manifestation of molecular action. It's like electrical field of energy activating. That's what's making colors. And mineral cell salts create geometric spin, which we can get into later, actually, about the ice wall later on. If you want to get into it, might be liquefied air, potassium chloride. from the colds of the Arctic waters. But there could be ferrum phos, which is a heat generating one. If there is a dome, as you're saying, Bob, they say there's iron on these meteor pieces they find on the ground. So, this could be, I think it's an electrical phenomenon. I think it's a discharge, a plasma discharge.
Yeah, I agree.
It's a change in the field. Now, what field that is, if it's a toroidal field that's spinning around that we're in, this is what's up for debate, really. But
Right.
I think these things are much closer than we're being told, and I don't think they're rocks.
Right.
In
Well,
fact,
I
I
think
was
they're
just going to say,
plasma electrical phenomenon.
yeah, I agree. And let me just say this here, and then I'll let you say what you're going to say. But the other thing that sticks out for me, not only with comets but also with meteor showers, is the periodicity. Right? We can predict when the Leonids are going to be here, or different meteor showers. Supposedly, we can predict, with the exception of the 1980 return of Halley's Comet. There seems to be a periodicity to this. So again, and that's something that kind of takes it outside of the likelihood of it being just some sort of a random, like lightning or ball lightning type thing for me. So
no, but yeah, I made that question too. But the thing is this, at least that for me, we have cycles up in the sky. So we can predict the orbits of the planet, we can predict the movement of the stars, the movement of the sun, the movement of the moon. And nobody predicts that, okay, there's coming the first meteor shower. No, based on ancient observations, there was always that phenomena. And if you take, I'm sorry for my English, but what I'm trying to say is, we had that phenomena from the creation of this world. So what you're taking is just like, okay, this phenomena repeats every certain cycle of time and keeps going and going and going and going. So there you have it, that prediction. You doesn't see coming from the space and entered in our atmosphere. It's like something like, okay, every 23 of July, there is this phenomena in the sky, and from the last 1,000 years that repeats cyclically all the time. So then you can make up the kind of story that you want. You can say that there are these electrical phenomena because blah 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 blah, or there is a meteor shower coming from the a constellation out in the space, whatever. I mean, you have the phenomena already, so you can make up whatever story you want.
Very good point.
That doesn't change. That doesn't change.
I'm just saying that's a very good point, because here, I mean, when's the last time that NASA came out and predicted a brand new comet that's never been seen, or a new meteor shower? I can't recall any. And it seems to me they're just playing the same game that the old charlatans played in the past, where they knew an event was going to happen based on tabular repeats, and then predict it and use that as a means to gain control over the population.
Exactly, and in fact, this first video that I show is the typically supposedly comet in the sky. But then you have the same phenomena filming for regular people, that you can clearly see the behavior of this is the same phenomena, and then start turning. So that is why I put a meteor with steering wheel, because you cannot leave that kind of phenomena out of the topic. But this is not showing in the mainstream media like a meteor, because it's turning. You cannot turn in that. So you need to have that in mind every time you see. They only show these ones that supposedly are coming from the sky, and of course we never see a meteorite going up and in all kind of direction. They are like electricity behavior, like searching, seeking the negative on the ground. You can maybe you can say that maybe there is an electrical phenomena that they need to find this negative charge. But let me just finish and sorry for my my English. But for example, when you go to the history of this meteor or globular lighting, they've been, trying to explain this phenomena from the early 70th century. So there is, in terms of time, this relativity new phenomena in terms of the science and the study behind it. But when you can see these cameras filming this kind of phenomena, here you can clearly see like electric discharge of the ending when it's end the explosion, because you can see like the tendrils of electrical charges. You can there, for example, so you can see that that is not a rock. That is more like a really big discharge in some kind of medium. I don't know what kind of medium. Could be inside, a few kilometers up, like the sprites, because you need a medium to produce that kind of reaction. So that is no doubt about it. But when you see that kind of balls, finish their activity in a really good spot from the camera, you can see this kind of electrical tendrils from the main explosion. Of course, when you see from the inside of the Russian car, you just saw it, in the distance, without quality, without high definition. But if you start talking about the colors, like he said before, you can reproduce all these cold and hot or warm colors. And of course, this is what I'm talking at the beginning. We have companies that they can produce this phenomena. And then you have this, giant ball that the people find in the, outside in the park or in the farm, like these metal balls that the military guys use for their training and things like that. So I don't know if you follow a little bit, because maybe I was a little bad with my English. But what I'm trying to say is that the same story that you can tell based on the heliocentric model, you can explain via globular lightings, because no one found ever the rock that supposedly fall to the ground. And if you don't go into the space agency, you cannot find that supposedly rock in the space before it's entering our atmosphere and blah, blah, blah.
All right. Okay. Well, so I think one thing we are all at least in agreement on is that the comets appear to be more of an electrical phenomenon than a ball of ice flying through space that's being illuminated. Okay. So and again, whether the data that the Thunderbolts project guys are working with is valid or not, like I said, it can't all be wrong, or maybe it can, I don't know, but I tend to believe that there's some of it that has legitimacy, and some of it I think can be trusted. Now, which data exactly that is, I don't know. Maybe we're just trying to fit it in with a specific model. But
speaking of Thunderbolts, they're great too. There's a guy on there called Andrew Hall.
Yes.
And he does a lot of the plasma research. One of his videos is called Ring Currents, which explains exactly how these positive and negative ionic charges build up and how the discharges happen. And it happens when, well, just tell your listeners to go look at it, because it's too long and detailed to get into. But, it basically happens when you got these positive charges in the upper atmosphere. Then a negative charge builds in the middle and pulls up positive from the ground. And then you get the discharge are these negatives trying to reach each other, or you know what I'm saying? So this might be what's happening up there. These are changes in the plasma currents. Something's going on up there where maybe these things, you just showed that video of that comet taking a U-turn.
Yeah, and there is a lot of that. And in fact, Sorry, I don't want to interrupt you.
Well, I was going to say, because, you know, the nature of all of these wind systems where these storms pick up, all these storms, they're vortex in nature, they're spiraled. So that could explain why a comet could take a turn, is if it's looking for the next discharge pattern and it's moving around the vortex, well, then that discharge would follow it to ground.
Yeah, and you know, talking about this, trying to put all together. But for example, if you show this to a heliocentric guy, it's gonna say that explosion on the moon is based on a meteor, an asteroid impact the moon. And when you see, you say, man, that is where is the dust? Where is all the where is came? Supposedly NASA has like $20 trillion in equipment to detect the asteroid that is supposedly is going to come to the near orbit Earth, but suddenly, there is an asteroid hitting the moon, and you never even saw it, even detected. So when you start looking in this phenomena, this is clearly more an electrical thing than an impact, because it just appears from nothing. It doesn't leave dust. Nothing, based on where is the lunar recognizer orbiter showing this? Where is all that equipment, that all technology that we have? But if you, and of course, this is from, mainstream media, YouTube channels and universities, and they trying to, say that is an asteroid hitting the moon. And what size that thing have if it's really an asteroid? In compare with the moon, that's based on their sizes, that will be huge. That must have some kind of impact and dust flying away and all this Hollywood movie science fiction reaction, and it's just like a discharge. Bloop. So when you go, for example, to the electrical universe and you're trying to explain what we saw or what we see in the moon in terms of how could be created, everyone see that follow the Thunderbolt project, but you can explain all kind of craters, not just the simple ones, which, if you want to believe in asteroid impact, that's fine, but how can you explain overlapping crater change, or how could you explain a complex crater that is nothing you cannot reproduce via or just in terms of something impact a surface? In fact, you have, for example, complex craters with a peak inside, a central peak inside. So what happened there in terms of if you're trying to explain in the heliocentric way?
Right,
So,
exactly. And all of this stuff occurs in the lab, obviously, as you can see. And, what we're witnessing on the moon, even, in like Valles Marineris on Mars, et cetera, and lots of places on Earth, is exactly what you're showing in the lower right-hand corner here, this fractal pattern that is plasma voltages essentially trying to reach each other. That's the way it works.
Exactly, and that things interact with with every material out there. You can reproduce valley, mountains, hills. Even if you go in the electrical universe, the rivers, the pattern that we saw in our river, or every path out there, volcanoes, earthquakes, you can reproduce a lot of things based on electricity. And in fact, if you go to the ancient culture, the Greeks has that supposedly the god that creates the world was using the lighting, Zeus, I don't know how to pronounce in English, but it's that he used the lighting to create our world. He's not just made up from
Wow, that's amazing. The pillars and stuff looks like down in the Southwest, like Sedona and that place in Utah. Yeah, what's the place in Utah that has all those towers, Ben?
Arches National Park.
Yeah, Arches, and isn't Zion National Park also have those? But yeah,
and
phenomenal.
And even, for example, when you talk about the earthquake, you can explain earthquake via electricity, because, for example, they create this this is of course in the really small scale. This is not real life scale, of course, right? Maybe Tesla can do it, but this guy showed that, for example, this is just dirt inside of a jar, and they start applying, electricity. So you can see how not just forming these craters on the surface, but they start to have like secondary bounces all over the place. And in fact, you apply this and you start having it like underneath electrical storm. It's not just on the surface, and you're gonna see that in a minute.
Yeah. Can you mute that? There you go. It's funny, Iro, you've got exactly the same video playing that I had pulled up to show demonstrations of this. So, hey, great minds, right?
So it's coming here. So here you can see what is produced underneath, and it's like a complete storm underground. So anytime that we're trying to explain earthquakes and volcano eruptions and things like that, you cannot saw what is happening inside of our Earth. You cannot do that. So you don't have any real conclusion.
And there's always this correlation between what's happening in the sky. I mean, so many times comets, the appearance of comets is directly related to, large scale earthquakes. That as well as certain planetary alignments. In other words, whenever there's an energetic event in the sky, and of course, mainstream science would again have us believe that these lights in the sky are, thousands of light years away, and something that would be absolutely impossible through the current gravitational model to have an effect on what's going on in the Earth. And yet it is so profound and so commonly associated with events that go on in the Earth. I mean, how could they not realize that these things are much closer than what they're telling us? Or how can people not? Obviously, I'm sure they know it, but this is all part of their deception. But, it's things like that that to me, tell me that these energetic things that are going on in the sky, the comets, the meteors, the planetary
even
alignments,
the Saturn rings.
Yeah.
Christian Berkland, the father of this, electric universe for the guys of electric universe, but they recreate Aurora Borealis, the electricity from the sun, even the rings of Saturn via or based in electricity. No, they don't put tiny rocks trying to orbit a big spherical ball in the lab to recreate the Saturn rings.
Right. Even though, and frankly, as I've shown before, and I don't know if you're done presenting or not, Iro, but
if you want, I can finish. Yeah.
Yeah, because I'll show you something that, what may be going on with the orbits here.
Sure.
So
there you go. And remember to press share with us here.
Yeah, let me reshare. Okay, so all right. So let me flip over to this. Okay, so you guys have seen me do this before, and like I said, the idea of gravity, especially as it is portrayed in space, is utterly ridiculous. However, because this is an electrical construct, right, and we know what static potentials will do. You have things like this, and this is kind of cool. This is done, obviously, I think in a zero-G plane. Obviously, I doubt it was done in the ISS. But, just by doing something as simple as this, and again, remember, guys, electricity and its phenomena are always scalable. So here we have in a zero-G environment, we have just taken a knitting needle, as Don puts it, charges it up, and then lets fly some little water bubbles going around it. And lo and behold, you get, somewhat of an orbital type of pattern. And this, in my opinion, is what is causing things to, have orbital characteristics up in the sky. It's not gravity, it's static electricity. And this is something that, again, is easy to replicate. Well, I wouldn't say it's easy to replicate, but it's certainly a lot more believable. And we can see this type of phenomenon here on Earth. with static charge. So again, it all goes back to this electrical model. And I think that this is truly what's going on. And of course, with the static potential so incredibly close, and understanding that not only is everything electrical in nature, the way our senses work, everything has electric charge to it, this to me makes a whole lot more sense when we start putting all this together. And that's why I think that when there are disruptions in our electrical construct, okay, our little terrarium here or whatever, that can have catastrophic consequences, for weather patterns, for plasma storms, and all kinds of things like this. So, yeah, that's kind of what I'd say about that. Any comments?
Yeah, they must be trying to do that with with a piece of a little more heavy material than just a drop of water, because for example, I have here in my videos the Hackintosh, or I can pronounce it
Hutchinson
well
effect?
in English. Yeah, and
Okay.
they can orbit, for example, tinfoil, just aluminum, a really small piece. They can orbit in around a sphere via electricity, for example. But we are still trying to show in the lab matter orbit around another big matter. They cannot produce this without electricity. In the supposedly real condition of outer space.
Yeah, agreed. So okay. So anyway, Ross and Steve, I guess getting back to you, you have, in your documentary, you have, tied many of these phenomenon that we see with not only catastrophic Earth change, but also all kinds of very interesting physiological and psychological issues, which of course, again, to me, comes as no surprise whatsoever, considering the electric nature of everything, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And getting back to the lights, back in the Wolf Minimum during the Black Death again, there were reports there were these strange smelling mists in the sky, which it could be sulfur dioxide from a major volcanic eruption, but there were bright lights reported in the sky before all of these plagues too, which it's getting back again, like what you're saying. It seems like these electrical changes happen and they start causing chaos down here, or else they wouldn't be afraid of these things turning up in the sky. But they are definitely related. And people start going crazy. There was a guy, I can't remember. There's a book. Have you ever read the Adam and Eve story by, what was his name? Thomas Chan, I think his name was. Was it Thomas Chan?
I haven't, no.
Okay, well, he was a guy called Thomas Chan, and he was actually a cataclysm expert, but they did some studies on mice where they put them in a confined area, and they changed the electric field, and they lowered the electric field, and the mice started eating each other. They started going crazy and getting in a defense mode as if they knew something was wrong and they were dying, and they turned to cannibalism. They were irritated all the time, and then as we put in our film, when you go through these Comet records and some of these, Rhode Island had hydrophobia, the whole Rhode Island get hydrophobia. Other people were getting a kind of a form of hypochondria where they're all afraid of illness all the time. So, our brain is electric too. So whatever's happening in the atmosphere starts to affect our mental and physical physiology because it's all tied together.
Yeah, actually, if you look at the state of the world
now,
right now, I mean, things are going crazy. You look at what's happening in the States and what's happening in England with Brexit and whatever. It seems as if the whole world has just turned upside down. And that could actually have something to do with our atmosphere.
Yeah.
I totally thoughts when you think of all the spraying they're doing on us. I tell you, I think there might be some truth to that.
Well, there's that too, and as you said, Bob, we were talking earlier off air. These Bible predictions and things, when they, when we look around and say it feels like we're in the end times, it seems like the people who wrote, because the Bible is an astrophysical chemical manual, the people who wrote this knew that when these changes were coming, this was going to happen to societies, because it clearly has happened before, and they knew this. That's how you can be prophetic. These prophets aren't talking to God and, they had a dream. They understand, because this stuff has happened. These are cycles, and you can see it, as we touched in the movie, on all the ancient cultures. They're obsessed with this. Religions, movies, modern, everyone's obsessed with this theme of end of time, cataclysm, and it's because it happens. And that's how they know to look for the signs. As the Bible quotes all say, no one knows the day or the hour. You must look for the signs. And that's what all of this astrology is all about. The Tower of Babel was there. This is what it's all about.
And we're seeing the signs now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is, and I've made this case before, that I think one of the sciences that is now largely considered to be, hocus pocus, but is a very valid science, is astrology, right? And astrology, when you look at astrology and the idea that the stars and the planets are these energetic focal points, right? And they are right here, I mean, literally right here with us, and they form a matrix, right? And you understand that when there are certain alignments and certain cross patterns, it affects our electrical construct and the way we think, the way we act, our luck, if you will, right? What was it? Millionaires don't use astrology, but billionaires do, right? And to me, this all makes absolute perfect sense. But what's even more interesting is that if you look at, legitimate astrologers that actually really know what they're doing, and we have a guy in the community by the name of Mark Knight. His YouTube channel is called Wakey Wakey, and he recently did an astrological forecast for the next several years. And as we enter into this age of Aquarius, and isn't it interesting that what that reveals? And by the way, this is kind of verified by Cherie Geo, who is also a very good astrologer. But what Mark was reading by these alignments and trines and all these things that go on with astrology is predicting essentially exactly what prophecy is predicting, what we can kind of see the writing on the wall about the plasma. All of this stuff seems to completely agree. And what is astrology based off of? It's based off of alignments of points of light in the sky, right?
That's right. Yeah. And as we put in the movie, Aquarius is the water bearer. It's the cleaner, the cleanser. You have to clean, you got to take out the trash to clean the house, and it's a purification. And I can actually read you. I've got it for your listeners. Actually, if you want to get into real astrology and how it relates to biochemistry, toroidal field mechanics, all kinds of stuff, there's a great book called The Zodiac and the Salts of Salvation. It's from 1932 by an occultist called Inez Perry and a biochemist called Dr. Carey. And this thing will blow people away when they understand what's going on. This is all related. What's happening in your body is controlled by the same thing that is happening in the atmosphere and the earth. And it's all one thing. And if people understand that, what's happening inside of you is happening outside of you, as above, so below. Because everything is based on these energies, these movements, these minerals. They create geometries which create movement. So, what's happening up there is happening inside of people. That might be why we all go so crazy, when the sky starts going crazy.
Right.
So that's a good one. There's another great book too here. It's called The Witness of the Stars by a guy called Bullinger. It's hard to get and it's expensive, but if you can find it, it's definitely worth it. But when you start looking at Aquarius, for instance, the names they used for the stars in the constellation of Aquarius, the man in Aquarius is called Hupeterion, which means the place of him coming down or poured forth. It's about flooding. And his Hebrew name is like the water urn or the bucket for what he's holding. And in Arabic, his name is Delu, which is where we get the word deluge from.
Interesting.
It comes from the Aquarius man, the star system. The star in his right shoulder is Salat Malik, which means the record of the pouring forth. So when you see that star coming, the sun starts rising, you know, and we hit the age of Aquarius, the water's coming, you know, and then the next star is Sad El Sun, who goeth and returneth, or the pourer out. So all of the names in that whole system are named after water coming down, you know, pouring forth the water. It's all about that, you know, and you start reading Bible quotes, Isa, the wilderness and the solitary place shall be glad for them, and the desert shall rejoice and blossom as the rose. How is a desert going to blossom without water, right? You know, for in the wilderness shall waters break out and streams in the desert. I will open rivers in high places and fountains in the midst of valleys. I will make the wilderness a pool of water and the dry land spring of water. You know, this stuff is all over all these these biblical quotes and Psalms, and they're talking about cataclysms.
Yeah, absolutely, they are.
And after, there's always this golden age, you know, that people say the New World Order, and you're saying, well, what New World? Where's the old one going?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? What's the New World Order? What New World?
Yeah.
And well, I kind of wonder if the elites have been getting ready for something just like this with all these underground bunkers they've been spending trillions of tax dollars on. You know, what are they doing down there under all of those mountains on bedrock, and you know, what's going on?
Yeah, well, I think that's a huge piece of evidence. Obviously, that's something that to me screams they know exactly what's going on. And by putting these facilities so far underground, essentially what they probably are trying to avoid is some sort of a plasma destruction. Now, one thing that people, I don't think, maybe they don't understand this, but basically when you see a lightning strike up in the air, what's happening there? Okay, so lightning strikes are caused essentially by a buildup of a charge potential, okay? And the air acts as a dielectric, in other words, an insulator. And the Earth, in my opinion, acts very much like a large capacitor. And what a capacitor does basically is it stores charge. It has two plates that are separated by a dielectric. And whenever you have a failure of that capacitor, what happens is the charge potential in between the plates gets so high that it arcs across and it goes right through the dielectric or the insulative material, right? So this is essentially what happens when you have a lightning strike. You will get a severe charge potential buildup, and of course there are numerous things that can cause that. But eventually the charge potential will overcome the resistive ability or the dielectric properties of the air, and it will discharge. It will go ahead and let loose with that terrific, huge, lightning strike discharge. So what is it that's happening then when these cataclysms come about and we start seeing the presence of these comets are coming about? So is the comets, the presence of the comets, is this something that is a visible charge buildup that is getting so high that essentially the earthquakes are warning us, because of this electric potential? Is this the precursor to the plasma events, that essentially the comets are the visible signs of the dielectric about ready to break down on an absolutely cosmic scale, right? So just something for you guys to consider when you think about how electricity works, and how comets could possibly fit into this. Because again, we've talked about comets and what they probably are, potentially are, what they certainly are not. But what I'm trying to do is come up with a kind of an explanation as to why they appear before these catastrophic events. Any thoughts?
Well, it might have to do with the ground. Again, if you look at that Andrew Hald one I talked about, the ring currents video, the ground has a positive ionic charge, and so does what builds up in the upper atmosphere. So it might be, something with these, these earth changes below. Maybe there's a pickup in the voltage potential, as you're saying. That's the main thing, is we don't know really. We know these happen, and we know we can observe when it happens, but
don't know why.
We don't know why. We know how it happens. We just don't know why. And maybe it's just if we're in a toroidal field, as some of the flat Earth people, say we're in a big toroidal field or something like that, maybe, I don't know, if it reverses spin or slows down or builds up a charge, as you're saying, and it needs to let it go on a worldwide scale and just boom, you're talking about ionic storms and, supersonic winds, and imagine a worldwide plasma event. This could be true if we live in a giant dynamo.
Yeah, in fact, you must take into consideration the one of the biggest sources of our electrical world, which is the sun. The sun is moving, is produced dynamics in the atmosphere, is charged all the atmosphere, and you have this, like I tell you before, I mean, no space agency ever predicts a comet coming to our sky. They never say, okay, tomorrow at 2 p.m. it's going to appear this lighting ball in the sky because and comet is going to enter in our atmosphere. No, everything that we have is based on the Russian car cameras. So they never predict anything. So it's unpredictable. It's something that is spontaneous, produced in certain conditions of, electrical charge in the atmosphere. And in fact, when you asked me before, what about the tail of the comet? Well, that for me at least, the tail of the comet is just produced because the main source, which is this big ball of light, it has movement. So when this movement is going forward in one direction, it lose material behind, and that is the tail. It's like when you, for example, I don't know which is the name in English, but when you have like these tiny sticks of sparks for Christmas, and you move the object, is leaving a tail behind.
Like a sparkler, yeah.
Yeah, you are leaving the tail because you have movement. Just that. You don't need to, in the heliocentric model, the tail of the comet is because it's rip apart, leaving all this material behind. Well, the same thing is in our case. You have movement, you leave a material behind.
We were talking about that as well. Another thing, when in our movie got in the grand solar minimums, another thing is, what is the sun? I don't think it's a burning ball of hydrogen 93 million miles away.
Us either.
I saw your Gleason map video. It's 2,700 miles up, maybe, according to that. But so if we knew what it is and what are these sunspots, there's theories that it's the end of a Birkeland current, and it's kind of like when you shine a light through a magnifying, it's like a refraction with a focal point, right? Through a lens. What is the sun? Because it also has a major role when these cataclysms and stuff come. They seem to happen in grand solar minimums when there's not very many sunspots recorded.
Right.
But what is the sun?
Well,
it's a transformer for some of the electrical guys.
Exactly. Yeah, as
for me too. I mean, it's.
But is it, is it a cause? Is it effect? Is it light? Is it physical? What is it?
What is water? What is air?
Yeah.
it's that kind of thing that came in the original package. I mean, this world was created like this, and we have this, and nobody can go and touch it and see what it is. In fact, you believe that, for example, dirt is dirt? No, that is a name that somebody put it, but nobody can. The mainstream science, they have a really big problem because they want to put, on the top level of God. They call themselves God. They want to, this conception of taking the light of the God. When you see the for example, the Apollo concept. But for being a God, you need to have only one skill, and that skill is create matter from the thin air, and we cannot do it. All the things that we can do in the mainstream science is mixed material that are already there. But when they trying to recreate, the Big Bang explosion and see if something came from nothing, we can do it. we cannot create matter. So, you know what I mean? I mean, we believe that, you know, we're talking about the sun like what it is, but if you extrapolate that to what it is, water, what is dirt, what is air, we don't know even.
Yeah, I agree.
We just use it, but we don't know what it is and how to produce it in terms of from nothing.
Yeah, Jeran, were you going to say something?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, okay. I'm
Ross?
sorry.
No, I just wanted to touch on something that Bob said, because it got me thinking about the sun and the moon. When you said about a capacitor, if the sun and the moon is the two plates in a capacitor, and the ether in between, you can have discharge from those two, maybe, and also we touched on this in one of the movies as well, the plasma ball, and the moon being a ball of plasma. If you look at we've all seen these little plasma balls that you can buy in the shops. If you look at the ball in the middle, that could actually be a representation of the moon, because we know now that the moon is a plasma. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got the negative and positive, the sun and the moon, and you have the ether as your dielectric.
Well, I don't know about ether being a dielectric, possibly, but you know, in my particular viewpoint, when I think of the Earth construct as a capacitive type thing, I think of the firmament as being the other plate of the capacitor, and the sun and the moon would, of course, each have their own individual charges. But the moon, you know, you guys even had this in one of your videos, was the professor that I can't remember. He said, well, you know, the moon is a plasma, and we know this, and you know, all this
Foster,
stuff. Right, Foster. But then you also have people like Eric Dollard, who has come out, and you know, he was actually commissioned by, I think it was General Electric or somebody, you know, and the University of Sonoma. Yeah, to actually study this. And he came out and he said, he goes, look, it's not a burning ball of hydrogen. It is a converter of some kind. And, you know, I tend to think that, you know, because of the elusive nature of the sun's position, and this could be something that is caused entirely by the atmosphere, but it appears that the sun only gives us an apparent position, which to me, you know, kind of strongly suggests that it is a focal point of energies, or possibly, you know, a projection type of energies. And I think the stars also are very much the same thing. There's something that is in the upper atmosphere that is required to actually manifest the sunshine and the heat, because, you know, we certainly know that the sun is not transmitting its energy and its heat 93 million miles across space. That idea is ludicrous. It's ridiculous. So,
empty space.
Yeah, empty space. Yeah, a vacuum, so to speak, or the closest thing we can, you know, come to. So you're right. It's what is the sun? But again,
what's the source? What if it is a focal point of what?
Right. Well,
well, man, you are asking questions, the most fundamental question that the humans have, because you know what I mean. We want to know how this world was created, but we have already inside here. So we can. It's like, you know, it's like for me, it's like a concept like when you are a baby, you cannot even reproduce or remember your own birth. So imagine trying to recreate the birth of this world. You know what I mean? I mean, I don't know if I understand.
Pretty ridiculous.
I mean, cymatics might play. You guys have probably seen those star in a jar experiments where they
absolutely
they like a star.
Yes, I think cymatics has a lot to do with it.
Well, it's possible the sun is also something like that as well, or at least the stars. And if the stuff with the firmament, you know, that's the thing with the firmament is, it's theoretical. If it's there or not, is it steel? Is it electromagnetic? Is it not? Is it something else? You know, what's above it? Is there water above? Like the scriptures say, could the stars be cymatic stars in a jar? You know, sound bubbles united in a thing, and that's why they're moving around, because they're swirling around in a vortex, you know, a toroidal field. You know, that's the problem, is we don't have the freedom as a species because of the powers that shouldn't be. We can't go up there. We can't go to the Arctic, Antarctic, all this stuff. They won't let us go, and they won't tell us. You know, and this is the main problem. People ask, are we flat earthers? We stay out of the whole thing because it's like we need the freedom so that we can all figure this out. It's great everyone's finally talking about this stuff, but all we're doing is replacing a theory that is ridiculous, this ball thing, with another theory. And as we talked about before, Bob, people don't want a theory replaced with theory. They want an answer.
Agreed.
They want facts, you know, and we don't have the freedom to find out the facts. All we can do is speculate.
If you think if our scientists were on the same page as us for the last 50 years, think where we would be now. We would know things like this. But even the scientific community has been taken in by this spinning ball lark, and it's put a stop to real science.
Yeah. Boy, absolutely preaching to the choir here on that one for sure.
Hey, Steve, you mentioned earlier about the Urbano-Monti map in Antarctica. Could you explain that a little bit further?
Oh yeah, I sent you guys. I don't know if you can pull that up, or do you have the?
I do. I've got it right here.
It's quite fascinating, and I think it was was it 15? What year was that one? 1583, or it's somewhere from the 1500s. Now, some interesting things about this map. That original planisphere is 10 feet by 10 feet. This map is huge. And what you can see in the center, if you can just, can you scroll it down so the middle's there? That's us. So you can show everyone kind of where the United States and Africa, you know, you can see all of that is mapped out correct. You can see Florida if you take a look, you know, and you can see Africa and Asia. So we don't know if this is an original or if this was a copy from an even older civilization, but this map is pretty damn close to what we have today. But some differences it has in the middle, for instance, it has what people call Hyperborea, or, you know, there's these Mount Meru with these 4 continents around it, just north of Greenland and Russia. And, you know, what's that doing there? We're told it's just a big ice pool. But if you zoom out is where it gets crazy. On the flat Earth model, you know, the flat Earth map has this big ice wall around the circle. And look at all those continents, how huge they are out there. What are those all around the outer perimeter? Look at those things.
Yeah.
Look how big those are. And they're mapped out with towns, leaders, weird creatures like Cyclops. You know, if you take a look at that map, there's some crazy stuff, mermaids, and there's all kinds of weird creatures rolling around. And then there's nothing outside of that. But they even have the shapes of those continents mapped. I mean, you know, whoever made this, I find it hard to believe they got the inside perfectly, how our Earth looks on our maps. And then they got the shapes of what they just made up. These giant models just made this stuff up. But even let's put a peninsula here and an India, you know, like it doesn't make any sense. You know, are those things? Is there an ice wall covering those? In this map's from the 1500s.
Yeah.
Are those there, and were they bare land up until something, maybe in the Maunder minimum, you know, maybe something bad happened in the 1650 Maunder, where we saw California changing and Great Lakes appearing and Lake Zembre and Zaire disappearing and Friesland, you know, stuff we got into the movie. We could talk about that later. But what is all that stuff there? And another interesting thing, if you go you can go by Panama. The Panama Canal is already there on this map in 1583. I don't think they built the Panama Canal. I think they dug it back out. You know, and people can zoom in and go look at that later. Maybe if you give a link to all your listeners. I mean, it's this. You could spend a whole 10 hours talking about this map alone.
Yeah.
And on this map too, I mean, if you hang on, where is If you can get around, you're at Florida there in Cuba. If you can get around to the east, just east of Cambodia, in the Philippines, or if you can go west, actually, if you pull it down, it should go through the Pacific. And again, you have to this map. Keep going. Keep pulling down. You're in the Florida and the Gulf of Mexico right now, so keep coming down. Yep. A lot. Yeah, go a lot. You got to get out all the way in the ocean. Hopefully we can see it. Yeah. No, it doesn't matter anyway, but on this map, you'll see east of the Philippines and Cambodia, there was this huge continent that I was talking about before, called Palau, P-A-L-A-U. And now when you go on Google Maps, I don't know if Google Earth and Google Maps are the same software. When you go on Google Maps and find Guam and Palau, there are these tiny little island chains, in the Northern Mariana Islands, but the shape underneath them, you can see this sunken island in the same shape on all these old maps. And this thing is huge. And there was a guy, I actually had some notes here. There was a guy who did some research in the Malay area there, Indonesia, Malaysia area, a guy called Fraser, and he was a legendarian. So he used to go around collecting legends. Right in that area, he found 8,000 separate inundation survival legends, just in the Malay Peninsula region. And that's right where this giant island is gone. And now it's Guam and Palau, and the Guam National Bank sitting in Palau, and I'm sure the military's there too. So this was another thing like Friesland, you say, how is this on a map from the 1500s? This thing's half the size of Australia. Where did it go? And why is there an indent of it under the water, under Google Maps, matching these old maps? So you're talking about some big earth changes during these minimums, to sink islands that big, turn California into an island and back, create the Great Lakes, flood that Lake Cannabis or Lake Zembre Zaire, as we showed in the video. Some really big stuff happened here. And I'm sure if you took hours, you could find hundreds more.
Absolutely.
Don't you think, Ross?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is an absolutely fascinating map with all the stuff that's in it.
I thought you guys would like that one. Those continents edge are the big elephant in the room. Don't mention the war.
And it kind of is reminiscent of that ancient, what was it, the ancient Japanese map, or that was found, that goes back well over 1,000 years, that shows all the continents on the outside of this ring. So yeah, I mean, maybe these are there, and that's why this is so heavily guarded. Because it just seems weird that they would just make this up, right? Especially with the reputable cartographers of the day. Why would they just make shit like this up? It doesn't make any sense. And
so Australia kind of tells you that they are just, look at where Australia would be. So they are just kind of guessing at some of the stuff on the outskirts. I mean, look at Australia there.
I mean,
that's supposed to be that big green spot straight up from where we're at now. Obviously,
well, again, well, is it, or is it one of the inner islands? See, we don't.
And how do we know that part of Australia isn't underneath water, right?
Well, this is what I'm saying. It could look completely. I mean, look at Africa, the northern Africa, all the old maps from the 1500s and even the old traveling books of all these people. It's mapped out as green with trees and animals and white people walking around and stuff. And now it's all under the Sahara. What was going on? Russ found some interesting videos. They've uncovered a lot of
some old ruins that are sticking up out of the sands in the Sahara Desert.
Pyramids and stuff.
Pyramids and all sorts.
Out in the middle of the desert. So maybe a large body of water washed across, and covered all that in sand. And maybe these continents have all changed huge in certain areas.
It would actually be an idea to get hold of that old Chinese map that you were talking about and seeing if any of the shapes correlate with this map.
That would actually,
it would be a good idea.
Yeah, I know the one you're talking about, right? It's a
black and white one.
Yeah, or like a blue and white, and then it shows them way out as a whole nother separate chain.
Yeah, those are two different maps. There's the one that was supposedly 1,000 years old, which doesn't have much detail, And then, yeah, there's the blue and white one you're talking about that has the ice ring and then additional continents beyond, and it has kind of the Summer's Gate and even has names for these other areas, but also includes another sun and a moon.
Another one out on the outer, yeah.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, well, I don't know. You know, it'd be interesting to compare those and see if those shapes even look anything like this. Also, I think the inscriptions on this, I don't know if they're in Italian or Old Latin, but, you know, if you can find, you can see on the flower petals around the outside of the whole map, every little beige indent between those blue flower petals has massive inscriptions written in either Italian or Latin, I think.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if that's readable at all, or
yeah, I think if you blow it up, you can read it.
It's readable, but not by us though.
I can't read it.
Yeah, me either. But it's readable. The script is readable.
No hablo español. But yeah, and there's some weird creatures on there. You know, stuff, griffins and cyclops, one-eyed giants. There's giants drawn on there, and weird birds, and there's all kinds of crazy stuff on there.
I just saw a bird with boobs.
Yeah, look at those snake guys or mer people playing around in the water there.
Like Jeran.
You know.
Well, excuse me.
No, sorry, guys, sorry. It's like Jeran in Amsterdam after, you know, smoke some things.
You know, and we put a lot of these maps in the movie, and, you know, as your, you know, your viewers can watch the movie, and we gave ample evidence that all these maps corroborate all this stuff. You know, there was some big earth changes that happened in the Maunder Minimum, the 1650s, and the Dalton 1800. That's another interesting thing. We said we were going to get into it in the movie, and we didn't. You can go to any civilized country in the world around the time of 1811, 12. They're at war.
Yeah.
Everyone, I don't care, pick one. They're at war. As America had the War of 1812. You know, Denmark was fighting Sweden. England was fighting Norway. Yeah. So something was happening where, again, as you were getting back to the brain chemistry, I don't know if it's because resources become scarce as the weather changes and crops go bad, or maybe to get a VE7, a volcanic eruption 7, where it just wipes everything out for 3 years, you know, nuclear winter type thing, or if people are going crazy. But there's war. And what do we have right now?
Yeah. Continuous war. Yes.
You know what I mean? This place is, everybody's fighting each other right now. So, you know, there might be something to that too. We were going to go that way in the movie, and then we started really finding out more about this stuff. So we gave it a sort of a, you know, a U-turn and went more of the way of this with the electroplasma and comets. But that's something else worth looking into.
Yeah.
I found your discussion regarding Lake Connibus fascinating. The island of California, that was fascinating. The fact that the Great Lakes are missing on so many maps, again, that's all so fascinating. But I'd like just to state a word of caution here. Is something that we see in what's happening right now in the media, especially, is that there's this narrative that's happening where the government is there to save us from cataclysms.
Yeah.
You know, there's something bad's about to happen. The good old government's there to just protect us, to make sure that, you know, we all survive and humanity survives. And I'm a little worried that some of these ideas are just contributing to that narrative of control. And I actually think that even some of the Christian ideas of the end of the world is about to happen are also a recent construct meant to trick us into believing in this cataclysmic idea that we need government to protect us. And I think that's far from reality. And that they're going to just use it as a pretext to take control over everything. Just my little word of caution.
I absolutely agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can actually. I'm glad you actually mentioned. Was that Ben or Jeran?
Yes, Ben.
Yeah. I wanted to, you know, because all this Greta Thunberg crap and all that right now and everything. What people need to understand is this: the powers that be, they know all about these energy cycles. They knew damn well we were in a grand solar maximum coming up to the 2000s. They knew that we were in there was, I don't even like to say global, but there was worldwide warming, global warming, if you want to call it that. They knew this because it was when they made the Club of Rome in 1972, it's this guy, Alexander King. He was a chemist, and this guy, Bertrand Schneider. They write this book in 72 called The First Global Revolution. They start the Club of Rome, which is a crisis creation think tank. And then later they come out to this document called Limits to Growth. Limits to Growth was in 1972. And I'm going to read from you The First Global Revolution. This is another book they wrote, and the first guy they quote is Prince Philip, the guy who said if he comes back, if there's reincarnation, he wants to come back as a virus and wipe out everybody in the world. He's the first quote they put. On page 75 of this First Global Revolution, and I quote, "In searching for a common enemy against whom we can unite, we came up with the idea that pollution, the threat of global warming, water shortages, famine, and the like would fit the bill. In their totality and their interactions, these phenomena do constitute a common threat which must be confronted by everyone together. But in designing these dangers as the enemy," I'll say that again, designing these dangers as the enemy, "we fall into the trap which we have already warned readers about, namely mistaking symptoms for causes." You know, and they go on anyway, but they admitted, the Club of Rome admitted that they were going to make this thing. Now, what I think happened, and this is just my theory, these cycles, they're not, you can't tell them to the year. I believe it's possible they thought they had a good 30, 40, 50 years till the cooling happened to get this global warming BS on us and get their one world government together. And I think that the weather changed before they got it in place, which is why now, remember, global warming, we're all going to be underwater. And now it's going into a grand solar minimum. Everything's showing cooling. As you just said, you guys got hit by a blizzard in late September. The trees hadn't even changed colors yet for spring. You know, and the whole Northwest just got wasted by a snowstorm. There's flooding and stuff. So I think that's why they had to change it to climate change. What I understand what you're saying, Ben, what Ross and I were talking about, the danger is, because it's so obvious this is bullshit, this global warming and now climate change, and because Greta Thunberg is such an obvious tool, I'm worried that people aren't going to get ready for the grand solar minimum because they think the whole thing is what you said, a government conspiracy to control us all, you know, through the climate. Do you know what I'm saying? There was a government conspiracy and is, but if this grand solar minimum is coming, and the evidence is looking very strong, you know, people can go on electroverse.net and David Debunking, Adapt 2030. There's a lot of evidence out there. I'm afraid people are going to just dismiss the whole thing as a conspiracy, and we're going to be in trouble if this hits.
Yeah, we're just be prepared.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we must be stop using. That is just you know, a little advice, but I hear, for example, in my radio shows and things like that, I'm stop using the word conspiracy and use for me the real word, which is operations, is government operations.
Yeah.
Because when you start talking about just the word conspiracy, they, you know, immediately the regular people which are not involved in these topics are refused, you know. And when you start talking about operations, well, they start to, you know, get into it and maybe listen without judgment.
Well, that's part of the mind control right there, because conspiracies are real. People conspire all the time. It's happening. And it's so funny that you can't say it without everyone going crazy, which tells you right there there's a operation, a mind operation going on, because you're not even allowed to say conspiracy. I mean, you can't get any more in 1984 than that.
Yeah, that's for sure. Well, you know, it's very apparent, and of course, you kind of took your movie into part 6, which you just released a few weeks back, or actually a couple months ago now. Just time flies, and you know, it starts out with this guy talking about you know, empires falling, and you know, the historical record being changed. And there appears to be this 400-year cycle to this, and in between that, there's like almost like a 200-year sub-cycle. And you know, the Mayans were all about this, you know, all about, you know, cyclical time and, you know, things taking events. And here we are getting ready to head into our modern solar minimum, right? Our grand solar minimum, which is kind of akin to the Maunder minimum. And I forgot what they wanted to name it this time, but you're right. I mean, everybody's so caught up in the idea of global warming being this hoax that they're not looking at what's going on now. And some of the weather changes are really radical. One of the things that you had in the movie that really blew me away is that 38% of the American grain supplies were destroyed last year from the flooding in the Midwest.
This year, yeah.
And now we're getting an early onset of winter in all of the growing areas in the States. So the crops that they did manage to get into the ground have not matured, and they're going to be wiped out with the frost. Yeah. So the food supply is in trouble, definitely.
Prices have been going up. How are the prices where you guys are at? Like here, I've noticed over the last 2-3 years, some of our stuff has almost doubled. Some of the grain stocks. And what are the groceries looking like for you guys?
Ridiculous.
I
Yeah.
cannot classify.
Yeah, it's skyrocketing. The price of groceries is absolutely skyrocketing. And again, I think this is one of the reasons why they're trying to create GMO crops, and things like that. But the really weird thing about it is that it's almost like they don't want people to prepare for it. Like it's like currently it's illegal to collect rainwater, right? And you can only have, it's like in some places you can only have so much space allocated for gardens, and it doesn't seem like they want people growing their own food. I mean, it's absolutely bizarre, the legislature that's going on around this.
Well, it actually does make sense if they want to depopulate, like Bill Gates wants, then it actually makes sense that they're putting these things in place because they don't want us around.
Yeah.
They want us gone.
Yeah. And they are, when you go back to Bertrand Russell and Lord Milner and both the Huxleys and Jonas Salk, the guy who invented the polio vaccine, he wrote a book about killing everybody with injections.
Yeah.
So they're eugenicists, and then that got the name eugenics got a dirty name, so they changed that to the technocracy or technocratic movement, and then that got changed by these Club of Rome guys to sustainable development, which is this Agenda 2130, 21st century, and 2030 is right when the grand solar minimum is supposed to get really bad. Coincidence? I don't know. And now they're calling it transhumanism in the future. It's the same name. So your listeners need to understand, if you hear sustainable growth, sustainable development, transhumanism, technocracy, it's eugenics. It's eugenics. They're killing people.
Yeah.
It's murder.
Exactly.
So people need to drop the sugar-coated names and call it what it is. They don't tell you about this because they don't want their system collapsing. They don't want you pulling your money out of the banks and buying a bunch of food grains and storage, and they don't want you around. And it's just a sad truth. This has been happening. They've been planning this in 50, 100-year chunks since the 1800s, and God knows if before that, as you can see on the screen. What's that all about? You got your police look like Star Wars.
Yeah.
They look like stormtroopers.
Yeah, it's all about fear mongering and all of this stuff. So, but you're right.
When I was a kid, they were officer friendly. Now look at those guys.
I know they do. They just looking at them instills fear, and they know. And just like stuff like this, all the caskets and stuff, and the FEMA camps. And you're right. The guy in the beginning of the movie was talking about, well, if you are the government, right? And you knew this was all coming, and there was going to be famines and things like this, how would you prepare for that? And I think that's what a lot of 9/11 was doing, was laying the groundwork for the police state to be able to, quote unquote, legally make a framework that by convincing the people that this police state was necessary because of the so-called terrorist threat, right? Which it's ridiculous. But I think the bigger picture here is what people really need to understand is that, there's probably going to be some very severe weather changes. And again, a lot of people, I have to tell you guys, first of all, there was a lot of resistance, by a lot of people, even to these videos that you put out, because they see it as fear mongering, right? And it's like, maybe you could see it that way, but it's also, there's a part of you that has to be realistic about this. It's happened before. We're seeing catastrophic events go on. They're essentially trying to make it illegal for people to have gardens and collect rainwater and do things like this. And that, whenever they're trying to discourage things like that, that should be a big clue to tell people to become more self-sufficient, to, get out there, learn to plant a garden, learn to be self-sufficient, learn some of these techniques. There's a guy whose channel that I just recently started watching called the Ice Age Farmer, right?
He's awesome, yeah.
Yeah,
Very
you're
good.
familiar with it? Yeah, and it's like, this is something that really needs to be stressed to people, and it's not in the spirit of fear-mongering. It's in the spirit of being realistic and surviving, because I know nobody wants to be the person that didn't prepare and then sits there and watches his family starve to death, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's horrific.
Well, what I'd like to say to your listeners, because this is scary, you're right, this is scary stuff, and we're not selling anything, so I have no real motivation to fearmonger, but what people need to know is it's not going to freeze over into a giant ice age and food will never grow again. There will be years in the grand solar minimum where there's a great crop, a nice warm summer. The summers are going to get shorter. There's going to be some years like 1816 in the mini Dalton. Now, the problem is, as you said earlier, you're right, there's a 400-year cycle of these and a 200 sub-cycle. The problem was the 1800 one was a little sub-cycle. This one's going to look more like the Maunder in the Wolf, a big one. But it doesn't mean food doesn't grow. It just means there might be a year like 1816, known as 1800 and frozen to death, where the winter came in extremely early, it lasted, well into the summer. I think they had a 1 month summer, if they even had maybe it didn't even have a summer. So if you just have enough, people don't need to be afraid. You just need to be prepared. If you've got some grains, rice, you can grow food in your house in case the weather's too bad outside. If there happens to be one of these years or one every other 3, if you're prepared for it, we don't need to have a societal crash. We have so much technology, shipping, airplanes, so people who are afraid, it's because they're not prepared. And the more people who are prepared, the less zombie apocalypse we're going to have when everyone's running around panicking, as we put in the last video. You're afraid because you're not prepared. And if the more people we get prepared, the less chaos we're going to have. So yeah. I see it as a positive, and that's all I say to people. Like, if you want to watch this movie, it's unsettling, but it's something we need to deal with. It's the truth.
Yeah, it is. I think this clip right here pretty much says it all. And we've covered this before. Bill Gates, he's doing a
put the sound on if you want. Put the sound on if you want. Feel free.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's just play this little clip right here and back up just a little bit, and let's go.
You have that new.
And see how we can get this down to 0. Probably one of these numbers is going to have to get pretty near to 0. That's back from high school algebra. But let's take a look. First, we've got population. The world today has 6.8 billion people. That's headed up to about 9 billion. Now, if we do a really great job on new vaccines, healthcare, reproductive health services, we could lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%.
We could lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. If we do a great job with vaccines, okay, pro-vaxxers out there, listen to what that man just said, right? You're right. They want to depopulate, and this is exactly what vaccines are about. That's the reason they cause autism, and they cause all these immune deficiency disorders, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It is vaccines. And to me, frankly, anybody that has seriously researched vaccines and still elects to vaccinate is clinically insane, right? That's the way I see it.
Yeah. Ross, he's feeling the effects of it too, as well, with a child, who's my daughter is vaccine damaged. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I actually said that in one of the comment sections, and this really showed me the mentality of the fanboys. Because I was being honest, and I said, my 10-year-old daughter is vaccine damaged, and the immediate response was, "Oh my God, he's not just a flat earther; he's a non-vaxxer as well." I mean,
you're like, of course,
really,
of course I am. My kid got hurt from him.
Exactly.
Why would I be pro-vax? The other thing people need to know, if you look into Bill Gates, and he's on interviews saying this, his dad was one of the heads of Planned Parenthood before it was renamed Planned Parenthood. So that's a eugenics program. They started out putting them in poor black neighborhoods and stuff. So, I mean, again, as I said, whatever you want to call it, these people are into eugenics, all these elites and stuff. He's no different.
But Bill Gates now has his own documentary on Netflix, and he's a good person, If you saw that documentary, he's a savior, the savior of our world.
Of mankind.
Savior, yeah.
They think they are. You see, I think these people, they think they're saving the world, that there's too many eaters. And, I'm not so sure they're all a bunch of crazy lizard people who are just completely evil. That's one of the things that's always bothered me. I've been a researcher into all the deep state and the Illuminati. I've been down all the aliens, every rabbit hole. The one thing that always bothered me is why? Why are these people all, everyone's like, they're just a bunch of psychopaths and sociopaths. And then you're like, no. These people are intelligent and they're organized and they're planning 50 years ahead. They're not even going to be alive when these things come to fruition anymore. Why are they doing this? I find it very hard to believe they're just a bunch of rich psychos running around. Well, and when you think of it in this way, what we're talking about, if there's something coming, that's what they're doing. So they might think they're saviors.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I have an opinion on that.
What is it? Yeah, what is it?
I don't think it's.
Are they lizards or what?
No, believe me, it's something that it goes into the philosophical grounds, and honestly, I've thought about talking about it, but I don't think it would be entirely popular with a lot of people. But let's just say that yeah, there's a reason for it, in my opinion, and maybe one of these days we'll do a show on it. I don't know. We'll see. I've already caught a lot of crap for some of my beliefs.
But you are talking about.
always says, these people aren't human.
No, but our research about reincarnation and things like that.
Well, reincarnation, that's. Well, ultimately, I think that it could be considered philosophical, but there is an amazing body of evidence that supports that idea. I will say that much.
No, in fact, I talking this with Jeran in Amsterdam, and with Rodrigo and other guys there. But I became research in terms of the New World Order, because when I was 21 years old, I had my first out-of-body experience, and after that, my life changed forever. No, not in terms of economics or philosophical, or in terms of experience. I mean, I was a completely heliocentric guy, believing that once you're dead, it's everything done. Until I have this out-of-body experience and walk inside of my house and see everything and interact with persons. Then when I woke up, it was like that, and it was amazing. And in fact, I trying to practice that all the time because I was there like probably 20 times since that moment, and I'm still not believe, because that is something that you the only way that you can believe or not is if you go in there and have that experience and practice. But there is something out there that you can. I don't know if the word is control, but you need to learn how to operate in that reality, if you want to see in that way. That's my personal opinion, of course. And maybe these guys, they have a knowledge about that.
Well, they are master occultists. They have all the occulted knowledge. They know all about the biochemistry. They know all about how this works. And people need to understand, especially Christians, the occult is not bad. It's neutral. It's information. You can use it in a good way or a bad way to manipulate people. So these people, they're using it in a very bad way, but the knowledge that they have is not evil or the devil or anything like that. The reason they hide it from
they
us
use
is
that
it
to
keeps them
take you
powerful.
away.
Yeah, well, it keeps you powerful when the people you're trying to control don't have any psychological power to fight you back. We hold this whole construct up. We pay taxes. We believe in authority. We believe government is actually real and not a fiction. We believe we're on a spinning ball. We believe in global warming. We go along with it. 300 years ago, they used to march up with a pitchfork and put these people's heads on London Bridge for doing what the governments are doing right now.
Yeah.
We
should readopt that policy, I think, sometimes.
Well, you got to ask yourself why these royal families have 60 guys with machine guns standing around their house. The only other guys who have that is El Chapo.
Right.
Why does the Vatican have the Swiss Guard around them, to make sure we don't do it? You and I can't have 60 guys around our house with a machine gun, or the feds would go Waco on us.
Yeah, they would. So anyway, so obviously, what I'm curious about next with you guys, and because we got to start getting ready to wrap up the show here, but
Yeah.
In Comets Part 6B, what can we expect? What are you going to cover in that?
Okay, well, what we're going to get into, and maybe we can even do another shorter show together sometime later, because
I'd love
a lot of good stuff. I wanted to get into some esoteric biochemistry, and believe it or not, there's a physical and material aspect to all this that has a lot of relevance. But you've got these little grand solar minimum cycles, but then you have these 1,000-year cycles and 4,000-year cycles, and you have these called the Great Year, where the zodiac makes its full circle all the way around.
25,920 years.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm glad you knew that. And we can get into it next. And how much time do we have left? Anyway, we could get into it now, but I don't know if you just want a quick summary.
Well, I'm good. Ben, Iru, Jeran, you guys good for going a little bit longer?
Absolutely.
I mean, we could get into some good stuff, like, if you want. But anyway, so on these great cycles, there are these larger, I wouldn't call them extinction level events, because there's 2 billion species of animals and people on the, they wouldn't be here if these deluges if they were as bad as
if it wiped everything else.
Yeah, it's like there's too much stuff here. So, but these things clearly wipe out big parts of the world. You got to look at the wars in the Middle East right now too. They're fighting over like barren desert land, where Israel is. You got to wonder, are they trying to move all those people out because they want that land because it's going to be fertile again?
Well, that ties in with Tony Blair. Once he left the political scene in England, they put him in charge of the whole of North Africa. And now North Africa, as we know, is mostly desert, but very possibly after the next reset, that could be the next breadbasket of the world.
Could be, yeah, it's possible.
And they need control over that. That's why they're emptying the whole of North Africa, all the immigrants are coming into Europe.
Sending them to Europe where they can freeze to death. And then the other problem we have is we talked a little bit before about, I don't know if we were on air or not, but carbon dating, it's not real. It's flawed beyond. What was that video you saw? They sent a sample to 5 labs, and how big was the differential?
Oh, thousands of years.
Yeah, So we have all these scientists, and as we said before, scientism is ridiculous, but they always go on these assumptions they were taught in their college books and this and that and the other. So they'll tell you, there was I've actually got a list here, but they look at the rock and stratostructures and all the things that they're doing, and then they start telling you about all these ice ages that happened and continents were moving around, and the Wisconsin Ice Age, and this year in the Hudson Bay used to be in the North Pole and all that. But they're making assumptions, and they're also the timescales they're using, because they're carbon dating to figure this stuff out. It's not accurate. We're already missing 1,000 years of our so-called history book history. So these cataclysms, according to their dating, seem to happen about every 6,500 years, 55, 6, 7,000. And the last one they were talking about would have been the flood of Noah about 6,500 years ago. So going by their dating, we're pretty much due for one. And as we got into in our film, the whole point of this astrology was to map this stuff out. And Aquarius is the water bearer. They've been working on this stuff for a long, long time. And they've been watching for these signs and these stars. That's, as we said before, that's how these people are prophetic. So as far as science goes, we know these, we know in the rock strata, and we know that there were these cataclysms that were huge. We can see it in the geology, and our whole movie's about this. You can see what happened. But as to when it's coming, the Bible says in several quotes, you watch the sky, for you do not know the day or the time or the hour. They're very specific that this thing's going to jump on you when you least expect it. So beware and be prepared. They talk about it. But I want to read you. I want to read you some stuff out of this Witness of the Stars book. They talk about the Tower of Babel, which we're all taught. I've heard even flat earthers say, "Oh, they were trying to build a tower that reached up so they could touch the firmament." Have you heard that story?
Yeah, absolutely.
But what this is talking about is people can look up, if you want to even put this on screen, if you can go onto an image, I'll say DuckDuckGo. I refuse to say Google because they're the devil. But if you go to DuckDuckGo or whatever search engine you use, pull up pictures of Beers Nimrod. So it's BIRS NIMROUD. The second one down there. Beers Nimrod.
Okay.
Okay, that is the Tower of Babel. And that was found by a guy called Lieutenant General Chesney, who found he was a researcher and excavator. He was in Babylon. So the Arabs built that. Originally, it rose to a height of 153 feet above the plain from a base covering a square of 400 feet, or almost 4 acres of land. It was constructed of kiln-dried bricks in 7 stages to correspond with the planets to which they were dedicated. The lower level was black brick for Saturn, orange for Jupiter, red for Mars, and so on. And then the stages were surmounted by a lofty tower on the summit, which we are told in the Bible, they got a translation wrong. We're told they were the signs of the zodiac and other astronomical figures. So they built a planisphere up there, thus having, as it should have properly been translated in the Bible, a representation of the heavens. But the Bible said the Tower of Babel has had a top which reached unto the heavens. You see, this is where everyone screwed up. That tower didn't reach into the heavens. It had a picture of the heavens on top. And the reason they said they built it was because Enoch in their history said that their revelations might not be lost as the 2 coming judgments of water and fire. So Enoch made 2 pillars, one of brick and the other of stone, describing the whole of the prediction of the stars upon them. And in case the brick pillar should be destroyed by the flood, the stone would preserve the revelation. So that's what's going on with that thing. These people were, there's biblical evidence going back to the flood, maybe 2500 BC. I think it's a little older than that, but we don't know again. But the tower was called the 7 Spheres. That was the original name of the Tower of Babel in Arabic. The 7 lights, they used to call it, or 7 spheres. So this idea that they were trying to reach up to God, it's ridiculous. They were building a monument that would survive cataclysms to tell you when the next one comes. And then the other
like the Georgia Guidestone.
Exactly. And then the other one, we can give you the riddle of the Sphinx right now. They did the same, when they built the Sphinx. In astrology, the astrological year starts in Aries when you're looking into astrology. But in order to read their old maps, the riddle of the Sphinx was they start the great year in between Leo and Virgo. So they built the Sphinx with the body of a lion and the head of a woman pointing to the east to show you that that is where you start reading this story about the cycles, the great cycles and the destruction. So that is the riddle of the Sphinx. And they've got an engraving of it. They found it in where was it? The Temple of Esna. Have you ever heard of that?
I have not. No.
ESNE with an apostrophe over it, H, in Egypt. There's a drawing on the ceiling. It's got a Sphinx and then a woman and then a man and a woman, a lion and a woman. Sorry, and then they put a tear right between. It's like a long stele, like a hieroglyphic on a, you know, as if you were reading a long like a floorboard type of thing, and then they put a break in the middle of the lion and the woman. You know,
what is that again? I'm going to see if I can pull up the picture.
Yeah, it's a stele. If you type, let me see maybe I got the name of the stele here. It's the ceiling of the portico of the Temple of Esna, ESNEH. So maybe you can say ceiling of Temple of Esna, maybe, or temple.
There we go.
And let's see if we can see the stele. Maybe if you put in the search Sphinx too as well next to it in the search, maybe it'll show that part. You can see the stele going across, so that thing's kind of wrapping along the ceiling, and then there comes a break. Well, I've got a picture of this book, so what I'll do later, I'll send you guys a copy of this, and then you can maybe you can put it in your description, so if people want to see it.
Okay.
Anyway, so that's what was going on. You know, these ancient Babylonians, these people were stargazers, they were master astrologers and astronomers, and they were building all of these monuments and temples to watch for these destructions, because the only thing that's constant is the stars. I think that's one of the big flat earth arguments, is if we're flying around in a corkscrew at, as Ross says, Bob Dylan miles an hour, how come the stars don't move? You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, yeah, the ballers said, well, they do. They're just, it's really, really minute. It's like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, and you know, so as to what happens to these things, there's a lot of theories as to why or how. You're talking about major plasma storms, and this gets into vortexes when you understand how cyclones, super cyclones, thunderstorms, they have a cold air downdraft down the middle, and then they start pulling all these kind of ropes, like almost like Birkeland currents up, and you got mesocyclones. They're all fractals of each other. But if two of these things connect to each other, the chaos these things whip up, you know, you're talking about enough electricity to start putting what you guys showed, the Lichtenberg figures, and, you know, these things could wipe out mountains. And that guy, Andrew Hall from Thunderbolts Project, he's done several videos on these, on the ionic winds. And even funny enough, in one of his videos, he was showing about, you were talking about Arches National Park, where he shows those arches were made by instant plasma bubbles. And because he's on the ball model, he said, we know this happened billions of years ago in a super cosmic ionic storm. And he goes, and then he says something like, even though it looks like it just happened yesterday. And you say, yeah, what if it did? Yeah, you know, you're like, what if it did though? Who said it happened millions of years ago or billions, you know? So whatever happens in this dynamo we're talking about, this is kind of what it looks like. And I won't go into the ball. There's, you know, the ball explanation for this cataclysm is, it sounds plausible, but to me, it's silly. And I won't even go into it if you don't want to, but but we're going to go into it in the movie, because we're trying to, you know, we're trying to stay kind of neutral on it. You guys can clearly hear where our position is, but we want to reach everybody, you know, and say, well, it could have happened this way, whatever, it happens. You know, and when these big ones do happen, you know, you can read all your stories about the floods and the fires and the winds, and you can, why do the underground, you know, why are all these underground tunnels on the ancients, and why are there buildings on solid bedrock and on east side of mountains, and why all these cave dwellings 200 feet in the air? You know, why are there all these underground, you know, at these dive sites all around the world? They're finding these remains of parts of cities 200 feet under the water, under the ocean.
Right.
with, you know, I think we put some clips of some of them in one of the movies, and what happened? You know what I mean? They were clearly living 200 feet below sea level. What happened?
Yeah.
So we're kind of going to get into that and stuff, you know. And the thing is, if that happens, there's nothing to be afraid of, but you can't prepare for that unless you're sitting on the eastern side of a mountain 500 feet up in a cave with a bunch of food stored. You know, I wouldn't worry about it. And we can't, it's supposed to happen in the age of Aquarius, according to, you know, all the biochemistry and astrology and all that, but it's a 2,500 year age.
Mm-hmm.
So when, you know, 30 years, 5.
I think we've got all the indicators, right? I mean, we have Bible prophecy, so-called, right? You can go by that. You can go by the obvious changes in our atmosphere and our magnetic field, the signs of the times, as it were. You know, what's going on sociologically, the planetary alignments. Like I said, the astrology is very clear about what's going to be happening over the next decade, and it doesn't look pretty, you know. So whatever area you want to believe in, I think they're all pretty much in alignment, telling us that, you know, we are about to go through some changes in this world that are unprecedented. And not all of them are going to be, you know, a great thing, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, but you know, when is it now? That this is the thing. I think it was Ben, as you were saying. You know, I don't want to fear monger too much with the big one, the modern grand solar minimum. It's happening, you know. But you know, we know these cataclysms happen, the big ones, but you can't. You know, even the scriptures say you can't say exactly when. We've been given hints, as you've said, and the signs are around. But, you know, for all we know, 200 years ago, people were saying the same thing.
True. So,
you know, I had something interesting I just wanted to read you guys too, unless you want, go ahead and say.
No, I was just saying you're absolutely right. You know, it's a lot of it is subjective, but, you know, I think at some point people have got to, you know, kind of put the pieces together and, you know, make a decision about it, you know, their own personal decision, because, you know, me personally, one of the reasons that I'm leaving Colorado is because I don't like the idea of, you know, of living here. You know, I work at Denver International Airport, by the way, guys.
Do you really?
I do. They're one of my contracts. So, yeah, and that place is just weird. That's all I'll say about that. But, you know,
you just caused 10 videos to be published about you, Bob.
Well, it's never been a secret, you know. But so, you know, and I'm ready to get out of Denver. I mean, I don't like the population. I don't like, you know, the cost of living here. I want to go somewhere else. I've always wanted to live out in the country, be in a rural area. I want to get a place that has a little bit of land, and I want to learn how to do a little bit of, you know, my own farming and become a little more self-sustainable. That's my own personal decision, and I think it's high time that it happens. And I only hope, honestly, that I'm not deciding this too late. You know, but that's me.
Well, it's never too late, you know. So I think it's cool. You know, there's always a higher force guiding people who are centered in the heart and paying attention. So maybe this information came to you for that reason.
Yeah.
To kick you in the butt and say, "Well, get on it."
Yeah, I agree. You know, because you know, I think of the consequences otherwise, and I don't think really. You know, the elite want us to all be in population centers, and I think that's exactly what we don't want. And you know, the idea of going through these shortages, and I do believe they will happen. And you know, seeing people looting, you know, to the point where, I mean, it's going to be every dog for himself, right? And I could never, you know, I couldn't go out and kill somebody else, you know, and you know, to take their stuff. But you know, I do believe in protecting my own, and I could never live with myself letting my family starve to death. You know what I mean? And that's kind of where I'm coming from.
And like Ross was just saying, you know, they're making this move to all these electric cars, and you know, even though they're powered by diesel generators, but The problem with an electric car is you can only drive like, what, 200 miles or something before you got to stop and recharge. So I think this pushes to control travel, because if you have a gasoline car, you can go wherever you need to migrate if you're out of food. But if everybody's on electric self-driving cars that only drive 50, all they have to do is shut the power station down and you aren't going anywhere. They got you right where they want you, like Agenda 2130. You know, they can tell you where you're living because you can't charge your electric car. So, you know, you got to wonder, like, is this
unless you're into solar, you know, and of course that's very expensive and it shouldn't be, you know?
Yeah.
So they're pricing it into an area that's unrealistic, you know, because otherwise, you know, we seriously considered putting solar in this house, but the price is utterly ridiculous, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking like $60,000 for a system. It's like, are you kidding me? So
yeah. Why is that? I'm sure it's cheaper.
Well, they're doing exactly the same thing in Africa as well, because with this sustainable energy, they're not. They have vast quantities of coal and gas and oil in Africa, but they're not allowed to use it because of the new green deal, and they have to use solar, which is so expensive. The reports coming out from Africa are saying, yeah, we'd love to use solar and all the new technology, but we can't afford it.
Yeah.
They're not allowed to use the old style coal and gas, which is dead cheap.
Yeah,
right.
You know, and this could be part of control. Who knows, really, you know. But yeah, I mean, people need to kind of start paying attention. It'd be a good idea.
yeah. Yeah, I think so. I definitely do. But again, that, like everything else, it's a personal choice. And, you know, and we always tell people that. It's like, look, don't do things based on what we say or do, you know, figure it out for yourself. And, you know, some people may never come to the decisions that I have or Jeran is or whatever. But again, we're not trying to run everybody else's life. You know, we just simply are sharing what we're experiencing, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And the worry is, you know, if you go buy a house out in the country somewhere and get sorted, will they come kick you off the land or shut the, you know, the grid down? Or, you know, the Agenda 2130 is, as you said, exactly about moving people off the land through the World Wildlife, was it Wildlife Foundation or WWE? I can't remember what it's called, but, you know, they're making all these no-go zones and all this, and they just want you crammed into these smart cities where they can watch you. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, you got to wonder, will you even be allowed to stay out there? Will they come up with some kind of, that's the other thing, you know, we do know that they are manipulating the weather with HARP and, you know, what is it, NRAD or LRAD? We know Doppler radar, they're moving the weather around themselves too.
Agreed.
And a lot of people, and well, it's not a grand solar minimum. It's the Illuminati is giving us weather wars constantly, and they made this. And you're like, I know they're moving it, but that's the other danger. Again, they always have a carrot for everybody. They've got the people who believe climate change is BS, so they're not going to believe in any of it. Then they got the woke people who believe it's the Illuminati, and it's not really a grand solar minimum. It's the government hitting you with weather machines, which they are probably, and they're so blatant about it. You have to ask, why do they make it so obvious with all these people watching on these YouTube channels that they're hitting us with weather weapons? It's so blatant. And I think maybe they want you to see it so you believe that it's only all them.
And it's not natural.
Yeah, and none of it's natural. There is a lot of them doing that. But again, wouldn't that be a great cover?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. And that's the way they operate. You know, everything is always inside out, backwards, inverted, you know, whatever. It's never, ever face value. That's one thing you can count on.
Whatever they say, it's the opposite.
Right.
Yes.
Say whatever direction the mainstream pushes.
Right, Ross?
180 degrees.
Whatever they say, it's the opposite is true. You know, so that's something to keep in mind. I wanted to tell you guys, I want to run this by you because see what you guys think, because this is getting back to the cosmology. That I was excited. We were both really to talk to you guys. When I first ran across flat Earth, I have to admit, like way back, I got taken by the Planet X Nibiru crap, you know, back in 2012.
Yeah, I was into that too. Nancy Leader.
Oh man, I scared the shit out of my ex-wife, and she thought I was crazy, you know. And I'm divorced now, and that didn't help. Screaming the world's gonna end. And by the time I figured it out, but the disinformation was so good. Didn't you guys research that?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Like, it was pretty good, all the disinfo and everything, So when I ran across flat Earth stuff, I wanted to talk to Ross because I didn't want to get bamboozled again, and he's into all that stuff. So we really, really dove into this, trying to disprove it for a few years.
Yeah, couldn't.
Yeah, we could kind of turn us. But I've got this book I recommended earlier to your listeners and you guys. It's very strange because it's a biochemistry book, but it tells you what the Bible's really all about, and all the how the minerals and chemicals and electromagnetism work together to create form and cosmic embryos, how creation has a shape that's based on movement of geometry, based on these things, the spin factors created by these kind of minerals and things and electromagnetism. But anyway, so I just want to read the end because this is the first time I heard about flat Earth, and she just drops it on the last few pages. I'm going to skip a bunch, but she says, and furnish conclusive proof that the creative cosmic energy follows a path of curvature, forming at one and the same time an ellipse and the figure of the embryo. These findings seem to explain why the climate, as well as the seasons in the northern hemisphere, differ from those in the southern. This book was written in 1932. Then she says, it is quite possible that it will eventually be discovered that maps of the Earth, as presented on globes, are not based on facts.
Imagine
she
that.
She says the North Pole is really the pole at the center of the universe, or Earth, its navel, so to speak. It is to the Earth what the solar plexus is to the physical body. Around that, on a more or less concave surface, the continents and islands are grouped. The South Pole will never be visited by anyone, as it lies deep within the foundation of the Earth. So down from the North Pole under us. If this idea is difficult to visualize, study a child's top, for an example, a spinning top. It is spun or twirled by means of its upper North Pole end. It rests or spins on the opposite pole or end, but it must constantly recall that it has a foundation under it. The surface of the Earth changes during certain cycles, a gradual submergence taking place in definite areas, while at the same time new continents slowly rise from the ocean bed. The Earth may be pictured as an enormous egg. Now, this is just her opinion, but in a tub of water, the under portion is submerged. A partly inflated rubber ball is a better example to use. Pressure on the center causes the sides to bulge up, while pressure on the side results in the others rising still higher. It is evident to the student that something of the sort is taking place in the middle of the North American continent. And then she talks about Richard Byrd a little bit, but at the end she says, it does not seem unreasonable to assume that this circumference is met by the arch of the sky, since energy never fails to take a circular course, for it constitutes a very good reason for the formation of the immeasurable and insurmountable ice barrier, which may one day be discovered to be liquefied air. It is a scientific fact that the icy waters of the so-called polar seas contain an immense quantity of kali-mur, or potassium chloride. As this salt is chemically capable of producing great cold, we have further evidence of the possibility that the supposed ice barrier is really liquefied air. Order will eventually appear out of chaos.
Oh, wow. That is bizarre.
What do you think of that?
Well, I got to tell you, the part where they say that ice may be liquid, may actually be air, I find that interesting because I actually got an email, and I read it on GlobeBusters, gosh, it was over a year ago, about somebody that was supposedly down in Antarctica, and they were talking about, the ice not being just normal everyday ice. In fact, it would kind of disappear into thin air, so to speak. And I can't remember all the details about it, but that really, when you said that, that's what I thought of. Now I'm gonna have to go back and look that up. But that's bizarre. It's weird how things like that just kind of come around right back in your face every once in a while, right?
Happens all the time.
Yeah. Was it that engineer guy talking? I think I heard that he was an engineer or something, electric. He was working at one of their bases, and then he said, didn't he kind of describe it like walking on sand almost, or like the snow was like walking on sand? It wasn't ice.
Well, they had
snow.
he said that they had to analyze it right there because they couldn't keep it either cold enough or something. It would diminish, if they tried to transport it anywhere else, which I thought was really weird. God, I can't remember all the details, and I don't want to go into la la land about it. I'll look it up because I know I talked about it on GLOBEBUSTERS, and I still have that email. But yeah, it's weird. You just made me think of that.
Yeah. Well, that's what potassium chloride does. One of the properties, and these, I won't get into it, but when you study the esoteric biochemistry, these salts resonate with certain frequencies of what we would call the main planets in the constellations. They vibrate in resonance together. So this is where your astrology comes from when they say you're born on this day. They want to know where was everything when you were born, because you have this energy, because you actually physically have these 12 mineral cell salts in you. And potassium chloride creates cold. The geometry and spin, it creates cold, which might be something to look at the moon. Ross and I were talking earlier about how the moon's got cold light. How's that? So maybe if those, if that the Montes map we were looking at, if something happened where the seas started filling with this potassium chloride, got cold, maybe they did liquefy air and create an ice shelf over whatever's out there. Maybe that's what it is.
Yeah, it's possible. Hey, this was just playing in the background. You can see on the video. I was going to ask you about this because the guy, the Andrew, what's his name from the Thunderbolts project? Andrew
Paul,
Hall.
yeah.
Yeah, he was talking about this Recot, where to go? Structure, again, right here. Yeah, the Recot structure. And he was saying that this is one of these rotational currents that actually formed this. And of course, a lot of people have speculated that this could have been the remains of Atlantis. I mean, what do you guys think?
What do you reckon, Roscoe?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, that pictures. There's some other pictures of it. I've seen other pictures, and I think the problem is that the rings exactly match the description that Plato gave from Solon of Atlantis. It's exact. You can count them out. It's also near the sea. If you can see the picture on the left, there was supposed to be, and I think this is a city. I don't think Atlantis was a city. I think it was a worldwide culture. People, who get into Tartaria and the mud floods and all that might understand. But that thing has it allegedly had that river delta leading out to the ocean, and so does that Ricat structure. And now, as Ross was saying, they're finding all these other pyramids and structures in that desert. And, you just got to wonder. Again, we don't know, because who's going to go out there and dig it?
Yeah.
They probably won't let you. I would guess, I don't know if you can go visit that thing, but if you went out there with shovels, I bet you somebody would want to ask what you're up to.
Yeah, more than likely. But yeah, well, I just thought I'd ask because, obviously two very different theories on that.
Yeah. And it could be what he's talking about. His series are really good. He shows you these, Iru was talking about it earlier, how these electric discharges, they make an ear-shaped thing, then they make another mound with a mountain in the middle of it, when this arc happens, and he goes into a lot of that they're all over the place. So, it could be something like that too.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, the machining, and yeah, there's all kinds of stuff like that. And yeah, Iru was talking about that, and I had that pulled up. But it's interesting because they actually go around in circles, and they machine these things out that look like craters on the moon. It's very interesting. But anyway, there we go. That's one of them. I think that's what Iru was showing.
Yeah, I think they're using a plasma, aren't they? Hitting it with a plasma bolt.
Yep, that's exactly what they're doing. So, and he has several examples of machining and the plasma. And of course, you also showed that in your movie as well. And yeah, it's remarkable. But the bottom line is there's, the Earth is exhibiting signs that there have been intense electrical discharges. I mean, far beyond anything that anybody's ever witnessed as far as lightning strikes, right? And, I think that's the thing that they're talking about, prophecy and, this biblical event, extinction level event, if you will, that is going to be this massive discharge of plasma. You know, supposedly we're going to die by fire this time, right? So,
well, it should be water, but I don't know. I
Yeah.
can't remember. It was Holland. I just saw, I think electroverse.net covered it. A big purple plasma ball appeared in the sky for how long was it? I don't know, 10 minutes or an hour up in, I want to say Holland, but I'm not completely sure on that. But there's photographs and video of it. It's just a big pink ball just appears in the sky and sits there. You know, what is that?
Yeah, it's weird.
You know, strange signs in the heavens, as the scriptures all talk about.
Yep. Oh boy, I'll tell you. All right, guys. Well, you know, this has been a fabulous talk, but we're running at 3 hours right now, so a little
Sure,
bit over.
yeah.
But I would love to have you guys back, honestly, and kind of pick up and elaborate on some of these discussions. But I find this subject fascinating. I've been saying since day one of GlobeBusters that we live an electrical construct. I'm as certain of that as I am anything. And when you start putting the pieces together, both with our current observable reality and what science is working on, biblical prophecy, and a slew of other things, it becomes clear that our nature and everything about it is electrical. And I love going down these roads. And Eero and I have talked many times about doing several shows on the electric universe models and how it could apply to what we believe is the flat Earth, right? Whether it's domed or not. And it's just something that I really love this subject. So I'd love to have you guys back on for another time and continue this discussion.
Yeah, we'd love to be there.
Yeah, sounds great. And thank you again for giving us the attention and taking notice and promoting our channel. It's been really lovely. So thank you all for doing this
Thank
with
you
us.
so much. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Anytime, guys. And we will definitely do it again for sure. So
Okay.
All right, sounds good, guys.
All right, well, we'll wrap it up, and thanks again. We'll let you know when we come out with a 6B. We're still working on it. These films take a little while, as you know.
Yeah.
All right, excellent, guys. Thank you very much for having us on.
Thanks a lot.
All right, you're very welcome. Thank you much, and we'll talk soon.
All right. See ya.
Cheers.
Okay. Do we just hang up here then?
Yeah, you can hang up or stick on the call till we end the show. I'm just going to go around for last comments about anything. So, if you want to hang on, that's cool too. So, all right. So, Eero and Ben and Jeran, you guys have been, I don't know if you're speechless or quiet or just learning, or what did you guys think about all this?
I think just
I talk
learning.
a lot.
Yeah. Eero talked too much. I think.
Yeah, man. At the beginning, at least at the beginning.
No,
Yeah.
this is it's not my strong point on this subject at all. So I certainly did more listening than talking, and sometimes these are my favorite shows, to be honest, because just listening and taking it all in, when I'm ready to go down this path of research, these types of shows give me a great starting off point. So thanks to Stephen Ross for their work and for joining us, and yeah, I'd love to have him back again.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, we definitely appreciate that. And also, there were a few super chats that I didn't see. We just got one from Robert Safaris for $50. Thank you so much for that. Earlier, we had a €50 donation from Hendrik. I always butcher this. Olerts. I'm sorry, Hendrik. Maybe you can send me an email one of these times that tells me how to pronounce it so I don't butcher it. And
We had
also
$10 and Toy. I know that.
yeah, $10 from Brandon Toy, and then $14.99 from Michael De La Roca or Rocha. I'm not sure which one. You guys are starting to talk about things I've been connecting to Flat Earth as well. Yes, excellent. Well, I'm glad, because that's what we're trying to do is put the pieces together, because we all know that the government surely is not going to be forthcoming with anything except lies and deception. So, unfortunately, it's going to be up to us to research and kind of figure it out for ourselves. So, and I think there was one also earlier that I did not catch, and I apologize for that. But again, thank you guys for all the super chats. Absolutely fabulous. We do appreciate them. So, okay, guys. Well, I think we will call that a show. I did I do want to run one thing only because I happen to be married to one of the presenters of FEIC 2019, of course, Cami. And as many of you know, Cami and Zack are going to be doing a presentation. It's going to be titled "How the World Works," and like I said, I got to give them preferential treatment because I'm married to one of them. And so I'm going to play their little minute and 17-second promo video. Just wanted to get it out there for everybody and see what you guys think, so you can kind of know what to expect for their very first presentation. And from what I've seen, it's going to be really fabulous. So I'm going to play this really quick, and then we will wrap up the show. So let's give it a listen, guys. Here we go.
How the World Works by Cami Nodell and Zachary Zabala. In this presentation, we are going to show you the way in which we have measured the world to be, and then some possibilities of how the unknown creates and shapes this beautiful world we call home. We will be delving into how we visualize this place and the limits in which we may do so. We will take a look at electricity and magnetism, both the laws which govern them and the occulted knowledge that is hidden in plain sight. We will be using many tests and observations we have made and documented ourselves, along with others we have gathered from academia and content providers who have shared their research on social media platforms. In the end, we are hoping to share something with you you did not already know, or at least open your mind to new possibilities. As my favorite quote from Plato goes, those who are able to see beyond the shadows and lies of their culture will never be understood, let alone believed, by the masses.
Very nice, Zach. All right, beautiful. Okay, so I'm looking forward to seeing that. And like I said, you guys, Cami and Zach have been working super hard. They've got a month into this, and I think they have less than an hour to present all this. So it's going to be power packed for sure. So looking forward to that. So, okay, and that is about all I have, guys. I don't know what you guys have, but we'll go around one more time. And Ira, we'll go ahead and start out with you. What do you got coming up?
I like to make a presentation about half an hour, if you allow me.
On this show?
I'll just test you. No, it's just a joke. No.
You schmuck.
Got me worried.
I want to see how much you. I cannot pronounce in English. No, what I'm having, for me it was will be nice if you can share this video from my YouTube channel, but it's just it's just a tiny thing. Let me just give you the can you enter to my let me just copy and paste it. It's gonna be faster.
Yeah, just drop a link in the chat and I'll go ahead and play it if you want.
Okay, let me just paste it.
Okay.
Okay, I believe yeah, there you go. But it's just to say thank you for the guy. I would be in contact with 3 professional and commercial pilots from Spain, and I just want to share this with the community, because a lot of time we have been asked about what about all the pilots. There are flat earthers and things like that, and at least for me, in my experience, all the guys that pronounce in terms of being flat earther and a pilot like you, Bob, they are not professional or commercial pilots. So any pilot out there which is commercial, it's just maybe you need to wait until the flight ends and reach the cabin and start talking, but not straightforward and directly. Some of those pilots says, yeah, we don't compensate for the curvature of the earth and things like that. Just put play and leave it the video runs.
Should I turn the audio on, or is it?
Yeah. No, because there is no sound. I've
okay.
been in contact with these 3 guys from the like 2 weeks ago. They have been following me since like 3 years ago, and they start to talking with me, just recently, because they was afraid, to have some kind of issue in their work. And I take this just tiny video to put, it says in Spanish, it says like the horizon is always at the eye level. And yes, there are pilots that are flat earther and follow Null for Everyone channel. So what about you? It's just like I use that tiny part of the video in terms of doing a promotion for my YouTube channel, because this is the original video, and the only thing that guy can send me to public, to get on public, was this. I asked him to say, okay, can you start the video filming the outside from the window, and then panning to the artificial horizon, and then just write down on the paper Null for Everyone. And he printed that my logo, so I really appreciate it. But the thing that I like to share with the people is that there are a lot of professional pilots that are flat earthers, but they cannot get on public because maybe they lose their jobs.
Yeah, we already had a girl who came on the show, and she was
exactly
a pilot and
Lydia.
got pulled from the sky.
Yeah, but she doesn't pilot anymore.
No, well, she may have gotten it back, but
anymore.
yeah, that was Lydia Auerslut or something like that. I don't remember her name, but yeah, she was a
we were-
co-pilot on a 737.
Right.
Yeah,
She told us
you can.
after. Yeah.
You can stop the video right there. I'm just, maybe I was a little mess, but the only thing that I want to say is that these 3 guys are in our site, and I have a regular, contact with them via WhatsApp, and they tell me that anything we need from their jobs, from be inside of the co-pilot cabin, we just need to ask them for anything that we need, and they provide us. That is the amount of compromise that these guys have with us. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying.
No,
Maybe Jeran can clarify.
No,
Translate me, Jeran, please.
Yes, he's saying that those pilots, he's got 3 pilots that he's in contact with through WhatsApp, and they are on our side. And the most that they could do so far is to take a video from the cockpit, obviously showing the horizon, and then zooming back and showing Iru's channel, sitting there on the, what do you call it, a steering stick? I don't know what it's called in planes.
The yoke.
Yes.
The yoke, thank you.
Yes.
Bob would know. I'll go to Bob for that information. So no, it's really awesome to know that they're out there. The problem is that they can't come forward with their real names or with any kind of that information, or at least maybe they have that information with Iru, but they tell us that they for fear of their job and supporting their family. Obviously, if you've put years into flight training and to become a pilot, you could lose that all at once, just like the girl Lydia did, who came out and then they said she was mentally unfit to fly planes because she had come out and said that she thought that the Earth could be a level plane, a stationary plane, and yeah, that's what happens.
Yeah, and these guys, if you need something technical from inside the plane, they can provide us with that information.
Gotcha.
In terms of flight route, maps, and I don't know, equipment, that kind of thing.
Beautiful. Yeah, heads-up displays. I know that's a big thing with Wolfie and company. But
exactly.
Yeah, good. Yeah, it's good to have. And there is no doubt in my mind that there are lots of pilots that know straight up that the Earth is flat. There is no curvature, and all that stuff. But like you said, like any profession, that's why so many engineers and scientists are so afraid to come out publicly. Fortunately, they're not afraid to join organizations like FE Corp because they know their identity will be protected. But we almost need a a thing for pilots to do that, right? Flat Earth pilots, where they can keep their anonymity and be able to kind of come out and discuss that. That'd be awesome. But I'm not exactly sure how we could pull that off. But there's a lot of them because the pilots aren't stupid, unless of course your name is Wolfie. That and they know this and they fully understand what's going on there. So yeah,
We need
super
a website, Aviators and Pilots for Flat Earth Truth.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that's nice, man.
And the other group of pilots has just never even considered it. They've never thought about it. They've never thought about the shape of the Earth because it certainly isn't involved in any of their training.
No,
So
never.
to account for it or deal with it at all. So it's just assumed, hey, we've been taught this. They've been taught the same thing we all were in school, and it's just something they don't ever look into. So that's why when we get off planes and we are talking to these pilots, most of them are considering it for the first time.
Yep. Beautiful. Okay, so that all you got here, or you have anything else that you're going to be doing?
No, and I'm going. I start thinking in doing English content directly in my main channel because I started, a new channel again, and I've started uploading things from the scratch. It's a little frustrating for me, so I'm gonna be set up my Spanish channel to be, in both languages. So when I do that, I'm going to let everybody knows, and maybe in 1-2 weeks I'm gonna start doing live hangouts in English and things like that.
Beautiful. That's awesome. Okay. Well, we will definitely be looking forward to that. And so I guess we'll bring it around to Ben. And Ben, obviously you just got back from Romania. You got lots of diapers to change and daddying to do. But anything other than that, what else you got going on, sir?
Oh, I just get back on my channel, start getting more content out, and hopefully get the word going. I appreciated the show today. It's just I'm still hesitant about this fear-based programming and fear-based mind control. So I guess I have maybe I'll put out a video on that one too, because I think this doom and gloom thing is a recent construct to cause us to surrender ourselves to the government. But anyway, I'll end on that happy note. But thanks again for having me on the show, and I really appreciate it.
Oh, no problem, Ben. Well, you know what? We appreciate your skepticism, and we share it. Everybody's got their different thoughts on it, and that's what makes GlobeBusters what it is we all have our take on it. We're certainly not a, what do they call it? When everybody's on the same page. We're not that way. We have different thoughts and different ideas about it. But the beauty is that we can talk about it and not, get ridiculous about it. So that's why we appreciate every viewpoint in here. So excellent. All right. And I guess last but not least, that will bring us around to you, Jeran. I love some of the ideas that you were talking about on your show last night. But maybe you want to elaborate on that and what else you got coming up?
Well, I mean, first of all, I totally agree with what Ben said. Well, not totally. I mean, I guess my only change would be I'm not sure it's that recent. The whole doom and gloom thing. I think that they've been doing it forever because it's a way to get people to always look to daddy government or to always look to those, controlling them. I need you so much to keep me safe, to keep my family safe. So I just think they've been, obviously stepping it up, and it's been going on for a long time. But no, not anything terribly new on my channel. As far as elaborating, I'm just thinking of doing kind of some lounging hangouts. Just because, like what you were talked about, we sat in Amsterdam and talked, him, Rodrigo, and I, for hours as we toured downtown Amsterdam and went to lunch and went to dinner. We just had some great conversations, and the night that we had the bonfire, which wasn't really much of a bonfire, but we had a fire there in a fireplace. But some of those conversations were really awesome. So I think people are missing out on some of those quality conversations because they really hover around nothing. And we jump from topic to topic, and there's no real, subject matter that we're covering. We're just talking. So I think that would be good to have. So we'll look at doing that. The only problem is we've got some time issues. Rodrigo is like 9 hours different than me, and Iru's a couple hours different. So it's just hard to figure out a time that we can all get together. But we're working on that. And like I said, nothing terribly new on my channel. We've got Dallas coming up, obviously, in a month, and excited to see Daily Plaza, number one, not to mention the entire conference and seeing everyone And Cami and Zach's presentation looks like it'll be awesome, and everybody else's as well. So looking forward to that. Tomorrow on Raw, we have Shelley Lewis and Wendell Walton and Dan the Waterman. Those are the 3 Flat Earth representatives from the recent Jubilee Media video that came out. So I talked about it a little bit on my show yesterday, but people can find that. Just search Jubilee, and it's their most recent video, I think, and it's called, Flat Earthers versus Scientists or something like that. But yeah, that video is going to get a ton of views. I think they've projected it to get like 10 million. I know it already has 1.5 million or something, and it's only was released 2 days ago. So going to have them on Raw, so it'll be an interesting conversation, and we'll be taking calls the second half. So if people have questions for them, that's where to do it. So that's on the Jeranism Raw channel, and that will be tomorrow night, 6 p.m. Pacific. And that's it. So thanks everybody for watching, and thanks for everybody in the chat. Thank you, mods, and everybody for tuning in as you always do.
Beautiful. Okay. And as for me, guys, I will be next week. I will not be having a Globebuster show. And Jeran, I don't know if you're going to do a show on Globebusters or on your channel, but Karen has scheduled me as a speaker at 2:15 through 3:45 Eastern, which of course is 12:15 through 1:45 Mountain Time. And you can do the math for the rest. So obviously I'm going to be in the middle of the show, but I am, if you do do a show either on Globebusters or on Jeranism, I can certainly check in and give you an update for that. Do you have any idea how you want to handle that next week?
No, Iru and Ben, are you guys both available next week?
Yes.
Yeah, we could plan on doing something on my channel. That's fine. And then just have the
Sweet.
3 of us, and we'll come up with a topic. I'll hit you guys up this week for some ideas of things we can talk about or present. But that'll be fun.
Okay, perfect. And I will certainly check in. So make sure, well, just use the Globebusters group when you call everybody, and then I can just dial right into it when I'm available. So perfect. So yeah, October 20th, 1 week from today, will be Flattoberfest. Doors to the venue open at noon, and it's going to be basically going on for 12 hours. We've got Karen B., Mark Sargent, myself, I will be speaking, Joshua Swift from Authentic Intent. Then we will have the musical group One Big Love performing, which is going to be awesome. And Rob Skiba finally gets his dream come true. He's going to get a full 3 hours to do an entire presentation where he will not have to cut off any of it. So he is thrilled about that. So we got Rob Skiba part 1 and 2. And then after that at 10:30, we've got the musical group Twin Serpent performing. And then we'll call it a wrap, and we'll be hanging around and doing all kinds of stuff after that. But yeah, if you haven't signed up for it, by all means, it is in South Carolina. Oh gosh, I always forget the name of the place.
Firmament.
Yeah, it's at the Firmament, right? And the city, I should know better. It is in Greenville, South Carolina. Sorry, Karen, kick me in the butt when I get there. Greenville, South Carolina, at the place called the Firmament, which is a beautiful venue, and really looking forward to that. And then, of course, as everybody knows, just a short time after that, in fact, just about 1 month from today, almost to the day, will be the Flat Earth International Conference 2019 at the Dallas, I believe, Convention Center in Dallas, Texas. And the cast of presenters is voluminous, to say the least. All the Globebusters will be there, and we'll be doing presentations both as a group and individually. And yeah, lots of other great people that are going to be there as well. So I'm really looking forward to that. If you haven't signed up for it, check it out. Tickets are going fast. I know the VIPs are just about gone. And so, yeah, definitely something that you'll want to check out. So
and
with that,
I changed my mind on next week. We'll just do it on the Globebusters channel. Doesn't really make a lot. So yeah, since we've got the audience here at noon, we'll just keep it. So
start practices.
Sorry.
Start practices with the sound and that kind of thing.
That's it.
Maybe you can start on.
You get one screen share. You get one screen share the whole thing. That's it, and you're
on. Okay, one screen share like Rob Skiba style, 2 hours and a half.
And you're on thin ice with that one, I'll tell you. No, but I think we get more live viewers on Globebusters anyway, so we'll do it over here.
Yeah, we hit 1,000 today, so that's awesome.
Beautiful.
So, All right. Okay, guys. Well, I guess we will call that a wrap then. And again, like to echo what Jeran said, thanks to the mods and everybody and all of our audience that make this possible. Thanks definitely to our guests, Ross and Steve. Had a fabulous show with them, and they will be back, guys. And you are highly encouraged to go and subscribe to their channel. Their link is already in the description, and I will be adding the rest of the show links as soon as we close this up, and give me about a half hour and everything will be posted under the show link so you can go to those. But yeah, been a great show, and we will talk to you guys all next week. Until then, be good to each other. Don't lie to each other. Open your mind because there's truth inside. Peace out, everybody.
Peace.
Peace.